Okay, live stream active. We are recording. You may begin.
Hey, thank you very much. Just a reminder, with everyone who isn't actively speaking, please mute your line and hear some feedback in the background. So we will officially call the Board of Selectmen Capital Improvement Program Committee Joint Special Meeting of January 27th, 2021 to order. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask everyone to join the Pledge of Allegiance. Roger, I believe you might have a flag to show. Roger, thank you very much. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Okay, so on to the agenda, and Deb, June, and I will go through all of the line items one by one. We'll then accept comments from the public, kind of in reaction to maybe any of our suggested changes, and then any final comments from us, and then we'll make a motion to officially approve any changes that we made, and then we will adjourn. And just as a reminder, since it's been a year since the last SIP, anyone who's here to speak on a specific line item, you'll get to do that when we get to that part, so don't feel like you have to wait till the end for comments. So with that said, Deb or June, anything you guys want to share before we get started?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Nope, I don't either.
So Jim, you're all set also?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the one thing I'd like to do is I'd actually like to start out of order just to make things complicated, but as long as we have people from the ambulance on, do they have any? Never mind, sorry, they don't have any. Okay, so we're good on that. Okay, so we can start in order. So line 1, general operations, townwide computer technology upgrade is an A at 65,000. Any discussion there? Devin?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Roger, just so you're prepared, you know, they always ask, are these leases that we're currently paying on, or is this money that we're putting aside for future purchase? And I know it's an A that we're committed to this, but do you have that answer? Is this something we've already purchased, or is this money we're putting aside? Is this something the Board of Finance is going to ask?
It is something they're probably going to ask. We are not, we do not have an active contract we're paying on at this time. A couple of years ago, they kind of flipped the script on us, so we are now using these funds to put money aside to make purchases. So
okay,
if funded this year, the plan is to purchase either, some new desktops for one building, new laptops, something that we can keep pushing forward with the technology.
Okay, and they would be replacing things that are how old?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and but how many years old would they be? 7 or 8. Okay, yeah, that's old. That's ancient in technology years. So okay, all right. That was my only question. So.
No, I don't have any questions. But...
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. So line 2, for the planometric update, again, that's an A. That's in at $1 right now. Roger, feel free to jump in, or any comments or questions from Deb or June.
Yeah, typically this is a line that in years past we've put money aside, saved it away, so that we can go in with surrounding municipalities to put a plane in the sky and take new photography for our GIS platform. The past couple of years we haven't done this because the state has done flyovers at a resolution that meets our needs of our GIS system. So I'd like to keep it as $1 placeholder. I don't see us doing a flyover within the next 5 years or so. So we may be revisiting this line item in general as we do a review of our GIS system in general. But if the state's going to continue to provide these photography for GIS means, we may not need to do this anymore moving forward.
Roger. So we'll just keep that as is unless Deborah, do you have any objection? All right, great. So line 3 for the video security system, phase 1 of town hall cameras. This was requested last year and was brought back down to $1. It's in for $19,500 and some basic security upgrades. We were lucky to have one of the officers from Stonington PD to walk through, and some of these are largely based on his suggestions. Roger, I don't know if you want to add anything without getting into too much detail about security.
Yeah, there was a lot of areas with the department heads. They wanted their offices covered with a video feed. You know, they interact with the public on a daily basis. Many of the departments take in cash or checks in payment for certain services, and they want to make sure that there's some kind of video feed that's capturing these folks when they're kind of coming into their offices. Now, we've done a review of the internal, external hallways, open spaces and whatnot, and tried to come up with a nice balance of where we want to put cameras in town hall. So we've narrowed it down to, I believe it's 9 exterior cameras and 9 or 10 interior, replacing the existing 6 that we have inside the town hall right now. But it's going to be a challenge within town hall because of the cabling requirements, and the building itself presents an issue in some areas. So we're hoping to get at least some of the cameras done in town hall. On a nice note, we replaced all of our network switches this current fiscal year and pre-programmed all of them so that if we want to put cameras in the town garage or at human services, we can easily plug them in and have them functional and on our system should we move forward with the one at town hall.
So Roger, I have a question.
Yes.
So the $19,500 will cover all of the cameras that you just mentioned, the exterior cameras and interior cameras?
Jim, that's a rounded up number based on a couple of quotes I got from 2 different vendors. So it's my hope to replace everything that we need to replace for town hall, to include a new network recorder, cameras, cabling. One caveat to that is if we need to run cabling through a wall that is known to have contained asbestos, we may have to rethink where we put a camera or where we run the cable.
Okay, no, it just seems like it's a very good, like we're getting a lot for $19,500. So, and you know, and again, I know this is being recorded, but when this is presented to the Board of Finance, this is something that any place where the town interacts with the public, you know, along with the, you know, the dash cams and the body cams and everything else. I mean, I think this is like, it goes hand in hand. So I would really push for not reducing this to $1. So that was it.
So my question is, Roger, does this include any kind of storage, or isn't the kind of thing we'd be storing the video?
No, we would be storing it, and that's where the network video recorder device comes in. We need to size it appropriately for the amount of cameras that we intend to have versus how many days, weeks, months we want to store the video for. So we will be storing it on site.
Okay, and that's included in that cost?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think we have agreement, we'll leave that one as it is and advocate for that when the time comes. The last one in this segment is line 5, the ADA accessibility for town facilities. It's a B at 20,000. I believe Patty Bermel could speak a bit more to this, but just to summarize it, to say we took Board of Finance feedback from last year, working also with the team at Public Works to think about how we could use any funding given to actually make physical changes to our facilities versus trying to do a plan out. We'll do that internally. But Patty, do you want to speak?
Sure. Sure. So as part of one of the things I'm working on is an overall town ADA accessibility plan, which is a project I'm trying to drive and work on. And part of that plan would include ensuring that our town facilities are up to code on all ADA requirements. So this is probably a small amount of money to put in. I don't have a list at this point of what changes need to be made, but we're talking in a number of facilities. And I can certainly just do a walk around and identify a few low-hanging fruit areas where we do need to make some changes to our town facilities. What we're hoping to do is not spend this money on a consultant, but perhaps have our own building department do a walk around with us and identify those areas that would probably be the most important areas for us to make updates to ensure that our facilities are more ADA accessible for everyone. So again, $25,000 would be across our facilities. It's probably not a lot of money, but it'll allow us to start making some of those changes and improvements to our facilities so they can be more accessible to all residents.
For Patty? Not, I would ask that we keep this at a B at 25,000 unless Deborah, June, any objections?
No,
I have no objection.
Okay, thank you. So that does it for general operations. I did want to check really quickly if we have anyone from the Historical Society on. Okay, yeah, we'll check again after. So police services are up next. So the first one we have is line 8, fleet upgrade, purchase of 4 new vehicles. This, Jim, you can share as well, is an A as I understand it, because we fund it every year at the same amount. I'm sure there's different people from the police commission on to speak to this. So I don't, but Deb and June, if you want to come in first, or we could ask if anyone from the police want to speak to this first.
So my big question when I looked at this was, because we have mandatory purchases due to webcams and dash cams and body cams and whatnot, and all the infrastructure related to it, even personnel that's required now because of the police accountability bill. And we've had a significantly reduced number of activities in town due to COVID. I was just wondering if it was at all possible if we could delay the purchase of the fleet instead of, every 4 years, to do it every 5 years. And I just wanted to know what the impact of that would be with the average, I know we have an average mile per car that we like to go with before they're replaced. And I know that these cars are really used extensively. But that was just an ask because of the large amount of money that we have to spend on other things that are mandated. So that was my big question.
Thanks, June. I don't know if Captain Olson or someone from the police commission wants.
Yes. Hello, June. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. So, I appreciate that thought. Unfortunately, each year we try to see, if there is a way we can reduce, but trying to maintain our fleet at a certain level and a certain mileage, all it takes is 1 year to throw us off. And then our mileage creeps up, our repairs creep up, and then it ends up costing us more money in the long run. The cars aren't built like they used to be, so we find that they fall apart at a certain point. Cars running great at 100,000 like they used to years and years ago just isn't the way it works anymore, and they're just not built as well. But 4 seems to be the bare minimum that we can get away with that would keep us out of the Evans Mobile having large repairs done, and maintaining and also having a halfway decent value when we trade them in. So I would love to jump it up to 5, but obviously keeping it at 4 would be the best way. And talking to the fleet manager, Brian Schneider, he just said it would be detrimental to reduce the 4 just because it's just getting us there. It's just getting us to that point where our cars aren't falling apart and we're trading them in, we're limping them. Matter of fact, I've volunteered to drive one of the cars up to MHQ that we're trading in Monday. And, they told me, make sure your life insurance policy is paid up because, they're not the healthiest cars and we don't want to pay for a tow. So we're going to drive some old Crown Vics up and pick up our new ones. Another issue is the cars that we've ordered back in June, we are just getting Monday. So that's how long it takes to get these cars. So if we skip a year, we're not only skipping the year, but we're also this long time where it takes to get them. I know that's long-winded, but that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I know the cars are always something that are looked at every year because it's a big ticket item. And I don't have all the, the supporting documentation with respect to mileage and everything. So we'll look for other areas to help to trim SIP. So, but but that's one of the things, maybe just be aware of the questions that you'll be asked, because we didn't have a lot of activity. We didn't have any activities in town where the police needed to be. And I know that with everybody being hunkered down and quarantining, that, just from the monthly statistics, there's been fewer DUIs, there's been fewer of everything, except perhaps home break-ins and car thefts. But just to be prepared with that information to the Board of Finance. So, okay.
Sure. Good point. Thank you.
All right.
Deb, any questions or reactions?
No, I had a similar question to June, and thank you for answering it, Todd.
You always have a script every year. You're ready for this question.
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you. So we'll that line 9, technology upgrade, communication equipment upgrade. Again, that's an A. Was brought down to $1 last year because of COVID constraints. We have it back at the 20,000. I think this should stay. It's an A. I don't know if we need any discussion on it, Deb or June, or if you're all set.
No, it's just that, the A's are being questioned as to, is this a lease or is this a purchase we're paying off, or is this money that we're putting aside? Because the monies that are being put aside, that's where you get into reducing it down to $1 and delaying that monies for a year. So just to be prepared with that answer and to have the details to what that money's buying. So.
Sure. That is money that's put aside. It has bailed us out many times in the past, as I'm sure you've heard the chief say. We had to put $80,000 into a phone system years ago, and it was nice to be able to just pluck it out of that account, because technology is changing and moving so fast, and we have to keep up with it. We are now in trouble of our RMS and CAD, our dispatch computer system, and our records management system being kind of outdated. The state is coming out with e-ticketing, and IMC, our current RMS and CAD vendor, does not support e-ticketing. So we're going to be in a little bit of trouble in a few years if we don't start to think about replacing our RMS system and our CAD system. A lot of the PDs around us have changed. Groton Town just went to Next Gen, which is what the state has, which has e-ticketing. A lot of the state has Next Gen. Matter of fact, the Police Chiefs Association of Connecticut was trying to get every agency on Next Gen, so everybody was on the same page. But that's the type of big ticket item that if we just put a little bit away, we don't get that huge hit when it's time to make the move. So I understand last year was difficult and it went down to $1, and I totally get it. But it would be nice to try to keep it in there this year. And we'll support that when the questions come up for the Board of Finance.
Thank you, Captain Olson. No, I think this is one of those, again, we don't want, last year was a tough year. This year again will be, but we can't keep putting off some of these items, or we're going to be in a bind this year or next year. Deb or June, any questions or comments on that one?
No, I was going to ask for an example of, and you did a good job, Todd, with a couple examples. So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, so leave that one. The next one is line 11, Mdt Replacement. I believe this is for in the cars, and that's at 19,000. Any questions or comments on this one? Right, if not,
So-
we'll Go ahead.
So I can explain really quick with this. Some of the MDTs in the cars allows the officers to do all the work from out on the road and do their reports. And they're working terrific thanks to Roger being able to keep these computers up and running and safe from viruses and all of that. But some of them are at a 10-year mark and they only support Windows 7. So they're starting to not support some of the technology that needs to be on them. We have skipped a couple years with the 19,000. And when I just talked to Lieutenant Schneider, who purchases the computers for the new cars when they come in or replaces them, he said, last year he had said we could probably go, because it was a tough year, we could probably go another year with the ones we have. He just reached out to me and said, with Windows 7, we really at all costs have to try to keep that money in there or we're going to be in big trouble. And we may end up deadlining cars because the officers can't do their job in the car, and we'll have all the officers in the station doing their work from inside where they're not as proactive or visible. So that's all I got.
And just as a quick reminder to everybody, Microsoft has sunsetted Windows 7. There are no new updates. There are no bug fixes. There's no back-end security patches for that operating system anymore. So these MDTs are well past their end of life on their operating systems.
I don't have any further questions. Deborah, you good? Okay, so then on to line 15 for the body and cruiser cameras. This is at 500,000. Again, Wilson can speak more to this. I understand we're hopeful that the state is going to do the 35% reimbursement, which it will show up in the revenue as an offset for this 500,000. Again, this is a mandate, also something needed, something the police actually asked for last year and was cut due to budget constraints. So this is, again, an ongoing ask and now a requirement. But Captain Olson, do you want to come in on this a little bit more?
Sure. So actually the 500 is a little bit low, but we're still negotiating. It's not the typical negotiation. We normally beat the heck out of contractors that come in here, whether it's for computers or HVAC or whatever. But unfortunately, every department is going to be going to a body cam and a cruiser cam because they have to. So there is a little bit of a waiting list. So there isn't a lot of leverage to beat them up on their prices. So the prices that we have are for a 5-year plan. And that's what most departments are going with. And the 5-year plan also includes the cloud storage, which working with our IT experts is the way to go. We're looking at unlimited storage, so there's no problem with potentially hitting some sort of cap. It also has a program in there where, because they're going to get dropped when we're in fights, they're going to get knocked off and smashed. There are automatic replacement programs built into these where if we smash one, it doesn't work, it's got a glitch, we literally mail it back to them. They mail us another one immediately overnight and it's replaced. So the front end, the first year of the 5 years is front loaded, for the camera price, and then the additional years are less. But going for I believe it's a 30% reimbursement, and the chief, we're hopeful that that's going to still exist. There was some concern where the state had no idea what it was going to cost them to do this 30% reimbursement because they just jumped into this so quickly, unfortunately. And it's only good for the first year. So a lot of departments are looking at this 5-year plan. So it's front loaded and they get 30% of the larger sum to try to get into it a little easier. We do have to, according to section 19 of the new bill, we do have to have this done by 2022. But like I said, so many departments, across the country that are all trying to get body cams and cruiser cams at the same time. They're trying to give us enough time in the event that they are back ordered or they can't supply the units for the demand. So it'll be a good thing for the department. I don't think there's anybody in here that's dreading the cameras. I think they're going to protect our officers more than anything because, our officers do a great job and they really, they want to show that when somebody claims something. So, or if we have to document something. So that's pretty much what I have. I mean, right now, Axon is at just over $400,000 for the body cams for the 5 years, and $170,000 for the cruiser cams installed. But like I said, we're still negotiating with them, and we're still seeing if we go out the 5 years or if we don't go out the 5 years. But it's a fluid process. We're hoping to get through it as quick as possible and get them deployed.
Much Capitals. And June or Deb, anything on that? If not, I recommend we keep that as is.
No.
No
I got a
questions.
question. I have a, this is Jim Sullivan. I have a question. You just said 400 and 170. That's $570,000. Should we budget in worst case scenario if that's it, and hope between now and the Board of Finance sees this, we can get the number down?
That's our goal. Our goal always is to get the number down. And we were budgeting for 500,000 to be worst case scenario, and then it came in a little higher. Our neighbors, Groton Town, is a bigger agency, and they got a much better price. So we're kind of beating up Axon to say, how can we get that price? So Brian Schneider's in a wrestling match with them right now on that. We've cut out several options that we felt that we didn't need to save some money already, which would already reduce these numbers. There's an activation system that goes on every holster. So when a firearm comes out, it activates the camera. And we've heard that there's been some glitches with that system, as well as another battery to maintain and ensure that it's operational. And you get into more trouble when you have a system like that and you fail to have it charged, or if it's not working, why wasn't it working? And if you're already dealing with somebody or getting out of a car for a motor vehicle stop, your camera's on already anyways. So we've removed a few of those options. The redaction software was quite expensive, but that is something we need because if we have to send out video, which everybody is going to request, if there's a victim, a child, innocent bystanders, witnesses, they all have to be redacted, and it's special software to blur out faces and inappropriate things that need to be blurred out. So it's just it's not a cheap thing all the way around, but we're doing our best to lower it, and hopefully we can get the price down to.
Danielle, I do have one question. It's Debbie. Todd, I know you talked about Groton getting a better price. I was thinking, have we looked at, I'm sure you looked at this, partnering with Groton or Ledger to try to get maybe a better price, if we have a larger group coming in?
We've looked to see, we have a user group meeting that Brian Schneider's on, the chief, kind of put together to see if we could lump. I mean, everyone's got to buy them. Anybody that doesn't have them now has to buy them. And even the ones that have them may still buy them because they can get that 30% reimbursement, even if they already have them. So we're looking to do a large purchase, and we're in talks with Axon to be part of a larger group to buy more and see if we can reduce it that way. So we're looking at every possibility, but I appreciate that suggestion, but that we are in fact looking to see if we can do kind of a regional purchase rather than a Stonington purchase.
Thank you.
Well, Todd, if I can just follow up. So if we move ahead with $500,000 appropriation for cameras, are you going to purchase just $500,000 worth of equipment, or might you come back for another $25,000, another $50,000, depending on what the ultimate price is?
Well, what I think we're going to do is we have many options with this company. If we could come back and ask if we're low, for an additional appropriation to bring us up to where we need to be, or we tell Axon, this is what we have. So maybe we go out 4 years and we don't go out 5 years. Because right now, for the body cams, the first year is 120,000 listed, and then 77,000 every year after that, up to the fifth year. So they can do anything. They can tweak this whole thing according to the money that we have available. But it does, whatever we initially spend, it does reduce that amount that we may be able to get a 30% reimbursement for.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
If there's nothing else, I think we'll keep that as it is. Then that's it for police services. So thank you, Captain Olson, and Police Commissioner.
Thank you.
You're always welcome to stay, but thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is line 19. This is the Assessor's Department, the town revaluation every year. This is an A. Any questions or comments? If not, I'd say we need to keep this as an A. Okay, Deb and June, if nothing on that, I think we're used to seeing that one. We'll keep that as an A, and we'll go down now to Public Works Highway. So line 22 is drainage improvements town-wide. I don't know if Chris, our town engineer, or Barbara wants to come on to say anything, but remind you guys, last year this got the dollar. It's very important for our work, so we're requesting 50,000. I kind of see that as a minimum, but Chris or Barbara, do you guys want to come in?
Yeah, this has been a CIP project. I think it's been in existence for almost 10 years, and it's an account that's utilized for making drainage improvements or major repairs to failed drainage systems that are in the town's right-of-way to address flooding.
Questions?
Yeah, hi Barbara, it's June. I have a question. So this is replacing, replacing the actual drains like you did here on Willow and Washington Street. So whenever there's a drainage system that fails, so you're replacing the whole thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, in most cases, in most cases, it's for drainage work that's beyond our in-house capability. And then it's also for when we have issues. For example, there's an issue right now down by the Tabor Inn. Is it the Tabor Inn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an issue right now down by the Tabor Inn that's just come to light, and so these are kind of unplanned, but always arising drainage issues in the right of way, which require a greater extent of work than just an in-house repair, and also mitigate flooding issues, typically road flooding issues. And so, for example, down at the Tabor Inn, there is construction next to the Tabor Inn. Now we end up having a lot of drainage that sits in the roadway. There's no drainage infrastructure in the road there. And so most likely we're going to have to put in some sort of a drainage retention basin under the roadway to fix the flooding issue in that location. And so this is what those funds go towards. Last year it was funded by $1. And so that resulted in, if we had issues like this, they just sit. They sit, we sandbag it, we hand dig trenches on the side of the road, but we're reduced to very, very rudimentary ways to manage the drainage instead of what would be the most efficient management of flooding.
Okay, no, thank you.
Barbara, this is Debbie. Does this include the new project, the 4th District voting hall, that drainage, or is that a separate?
No, that's a separate CIP. This fund is typically for reactionary drainage response, flooding response. And I can tell you we use it there's no money left in the account right now, and it's always needed.
Thank you.
Other questions? I think we're good on that one.
Okay. The next one is highway equipment purchase. So this is for procurement and replacement of the Stonington Department of Public Works equipment, including highway, facilities, and engineering. It's the entire DPW equipment replacement. So if you look in your commentary, I put a table at the end which shows the last 6 years of funding on this line item. So over the last 6 years, we were funding an average of $200,000. Several years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, I evaluated this on a 20-year period, and we should be funded at least $400,000 for our current equipment and the life of the equipment. So basically, we're looking at, in the past, we have a shortfall of funding of $1.2 million. And if we continue to fund this at this level, it'll eventually impact our level of service and our efficiency. This year, we're asking for replacement of 3 items: a truck, a loader, and a chipper.
Deb or June, let us know if you have questions, but again, this is one of those deferred events that's going to catch up to us quickly if we don't kind of readjust the way we're approaching this. I think similar to the way Captain Olson explained with their fleet.
The cars.
Yeah.
Right.
So but come in if you have any questions, of course, for Barbara.
Yep. No, I don't have any questions.
No, I don't either. And I think Department of Public Works is the place that always gets cut, and it's not good. I don't want to cut this at all. So, okay.
Thank you. That's very appreciated. I think you can also see last year we funded it at $57,000. So yeah, I think this is needed, and I think hopefully Barbara's analysis will help with the Board of Finance. So thank you. So we'll keep that as it is. The next one is road line 26, maybe N27. We could talk about together: road, pavement, major maintenance, and then capital. So Barbara, do you want to give a overview, and then Deb and June, any questions?
So actually, 27 is roadway safety, which is actually guide rail replacement, and so we've asked for 25,000. Many, I won't put a number to it because it's probably not appropriate, but I'll just say many of our existing guide rails do not meet the current code requirements for a guide rail, and so we utilize this fund every year to do replacement of these guide rails and to put new guide rails in. And so this is just a fund to make the roads a safer place and try and get our guide rails to meet the current code requirements. This work has to be contracted out. We don't do it in-house. And so that's why the funding on this account is needed. This has also been an account that's been in existence for, I think, a decade. And last year I did not request funding because there was funding in it. But this year we were able to take the initiative and make some replacements. And so I'm asking for funding this year. Do you want me to continue with roadway pavement?
No, I have a question, Barbara. And aren't there guide rails that are a little bit more expensive on the scenic roads? Like you have to put in a specific type. You can't just put in the metal or wires. You have to do something that's different.
Yeah. So on the scenic roads, we have to put in. We have been electing to put in wooden guide rails that are a state-approved guide rail that you'll see on the Merritt Parkway. And so, these meet all of the code requirements for safety for a guide rail, but they end up being quite a bit more than just putting in a metal guide rail. And so we have done that on the scenic roads to continue to have the aesthetic value of it being a scenic road.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, and Barbara, thanks. Sorry, I skipped the roadways.
That's okay.
That's not great.
So,
So maybe now.
so items 28 and 29 are road pavement. They're broken up into major maintenance. These are treatments that extend the life of the road over 8 years. And then, I'm sorry, under 8 years, and then capital extends it beyond 8 years. So over the last 6 years, if you look on your commentary, I've also, underneath the equipment, I've done an analysis of this. So over the last 6 years, we've been funded $2.8 million. Let me see, it's been underfunded $2.8 million. And our road condition rating has fallen 2 points. We're down to a 76. So that basically puts us in a position where, if we continue to fund it at this level, we'll just see greater depreciation. We were able to get a lot of paving done this year because we had some funds remaining from the prior year, but you'll see this calendar year there'll be very little paving completed because our funds in these accounts have almost been fully expended. So I just want to emphasize that it being critical to fund it this year, and if possible, funding it fully.
And just a reminder for you guys, last year it was brought down, line 26 to 95,000 and line 27 to 200,000, again, because of the COVID constraints were to make, but that was a pretty significant cut to make. So I have no other questions. Do you guys?
No, Barbara,
I don't
no,
have any questions.
yeah, I just wanted to say, I know you've been doing a really great job of keeping track of the rating of our roads and the fact that it's starting to go down because we're not putting enough money into that. That is, but we want this, we want our roads to be repaired ongoing and not have to borrow. So those are really good points to make.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently at a rating of 76. And if we continue to underfund it, it will get to the point where we will need to start bonding for road repair. And so I urge everyone to fund it at the needed level so that we won't have to go into this, this furious bonding effort and furious replacement effort.
Okay.
All right. Deb, all set on that one?
No, I don't have any questions. I agree. I think that we can't let it go, so we're actually replacing entire roadways. Yeah.
No, thank you again. I think that might be the theme of this year's CIP. We can't keep deferring maintenance and infrastructure. So Barbara, if you want to talk about line 28, the DPW radio replacement, that was funded last year at 6,000. This year we're asking for 41,000.
And so actually, I'm going to let Tom explain it.
Hi. What we figured on this is that we had $6,000 that they put in last year, and we thought that we could break it over the next 2 years. Obviously, it's still a critical request from us because it requires that we have safety and communication with our drivers and our equipment operators out on the road. And we even had an instance last night where they couldn't reach, we had a large truck breakdown. The driver couldn't reach back to the garage to get the mechanics, and everyone is required after that to try to use their own personal cell phones, which we don't provide a cell phone to all the employees, only to a few employees, supervisory employees. So it makes it very, very difficult. So we figured if we can just get to the digital system, all these problems would go away. Now, to no fault of anyone, last year we understood when they cut out I think we had 84,000 in last year, and we think that the numbers are good. There may be a slight increase coming up in January of next year, but we don't know what that number is. Communications Plus has quoted us at this 82 plus the 6, about $88,000, and that would give us our base station plus the 34 radios that we need.
Like I said, and pertaining to radios too, I don't have the count yet for the total end of the year, but as of mid-December, we were called in by the police over 50 times. And so this is for emergency response, and this is during off hours And so, although we're not really the first responder, as soon as the police gets a call, we are the ones that they're called, and having a radio system to be able to communicate with them efficiently would benefit us significantly.
Thank you guys. Deb, June, any questions or comments?
Yeah, so Barbara, these are the radios that would be compatible with the new radio system that the police department has, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Yes, all right. And then I know cell phones, I know we have a lot of holes of cell phone coverage, and it's usually in this town, and it's at critical areas. It's by the schools, it's by Aquarian, it's by churches. So to have radios that can be used town-wide that are compatible with the new police system, I think is a urgent need. So I'm in support.
So this is, I was going to say, kind of to piggyback on that, this cost is enough to purchase them for this year to get us to a point, you know, where we're in much better shape with the public safety?
Well, we actually split it up, and we were planning on purchasing it. We were asking for accruing the funds so that we could purchase it in 2 years. Because we have to do, these radios are in the equipment and in the trucks. And so, so we need a system, we need the same system in every vehicle. And so we're asking half of the funding for replacement for this year and then half for next year. And then the replacement would happen next year.
Okay, thank you.
So are you guys good with keeping that 41,000 in as it is? Deb and June? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so the next one is line 29, the right-of-way ADA compliance improvements for ADA ramps. That's a B, and that's funded at 100,000. Barbara, do you want to come in again on that one?
Sure. So this is a new project. It's a new CIP request, and I can say, so the Department of Justice requires that when we do a certain level of road repair, road pavement repair, we bring all of the accessibility of the road up to be compliant. I have been doing that, and with all of my past projects. However, I've been using the the road pavement funding to do that because we didn't have a separate line item to pay for the curb ramps and to pay for any sidewalk modifications to ensure that they were accessible. And so this reduces the amount of pavement I'm able to complete. It also doesn't make it as visible of what improvements we're making and what funds we're expending to ensure accessible compliance. And so, to provide that visibility for the public and and everyone who's approving, and the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, we thought it would be prudent to put it into a separate CIP project, so that you could see what funding was required to make roads accessible before pavement treatments.
And no, this is one, I think I felt strongly about as well. And like Barbara said, it's also just a matter of transparency to show where the money is really going. So I think having the dedicated line item is helpful. And again, the 100,000 is barely getting us making a dent, but it's a start. Deborah, June, anything?
No further questions.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Almost done. Thank you. So I don't know if you or Chris want to talk to another new line item we're suggesting this year, which is bridge replacement and structural improvement fund. You'll see it's a U because it came up after our CIP committee met. We're requesting $100,000 and we'll be asking for that as an ongoing fund. And this is just as a reminder, as part of our new work that we're looking at all the bridges in town. That way we can be a bit more proactive in terms of our infrastructure needs, knowing that a lot of our bridges are starting to reach the end of their useful life, and we need a plan. And Barbara and her team are great at making these plans. So thank you guys. I want to come in on that.
So, and what we did is there was never a document with listed all the bridges that are in the town. And it came to Chris Greenlaw and my attention recently that we didn't share this with the Board of Selectmen, so I want to apologize, and we'll get this to you. But we created a table of 17 that shows all the town bridges that we're responsible for, and it's 17 bridges with a replacement value of $31 million. We had a structural consultant, look at those bridges, and there's several of them that have significantly low sufficiency rating. And one to the point, that's Lantern Hill Road, that basically should be closed. So it would be fiscally prudent to think that a replacement program and major repairs will be required in the next 5 years in accordance to our new bridge preservation program. And so, so I was thinking about it, and I've been here 7 years, and in the last 7 years, we put away $30,000 to repair an artificial turf field at the high school. And why this is critical to start thinking about our bridges is that this is our road infrastructure. And in a way, even more important than pavement, if these bridges fail, it's not like we're going to have potholes. We're going to have bridges that are closed. And so we really need, we know we have a need for bridge replacement now. And so we really need to think to the future and start putting money away for known future bridge replacements.
Thank you.
Danielle, may I ask a clarification? Is this line 30 we're referring to? The
Yes.
U?
Line 30, the U.
Yeah.
Okay, because on my description has right-of-way ADA compliance improvements. It's the same description as line 29. So what's the description? I might be looking at the wrong, at a.
No,
what's the
June,
description?
that was my mistake. It should be Bridge Replacement and Structural Improvement Fund.
Okay.
I had the exact same, go ahead.
And Danielle, I would ask at this time, it was unrated, so I would ask that the Board of Selectmen assign a priority to it.
Yep. Jim, so again, we can't make it an A. I would recommend a B. I think this is really important. Again, theme of deferred maintenance. But June or Deb, any thoughts on your side?
Well, I mean, this is going to end up being a line item that's going to be continuously funded, similar to replacing our laptops and computers and technology and everything else. So and Jim, maybe you can answer this question. Can we start it off as an A with it intended to be funded, or is it a B and then next year it becomes an A?
It would start off as a B and then become an A.
Okay, all right. That's what I thought. All right, so then it's a B. Yeah. Okay.
I had the same comment. Yeah. I think it's important, and I appreciate, Barbara and Chris for bringing this forward, because we do need to think about this.
And I like the analogy, Barbara, or the comparison with the turf, because, when I was on the Board of Finance, it was very important to keep putting that money away to replace the turf, because that was a bond that was used to build that field. And so I think that's keep that in your commentary. That's a good comparison.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. So we'll make a final official motion at the end of the meeting, but I think we have agreement that a B. So line 30, Bridge Replacement Structural Improvement Fund will be a B at 100,000. And that is it for Public Works Highway. Thank you guys so much. As you guys can see, we're just about halfway through, and the money really adds up. But I really feel like so far everything we've been through really is unavoidable, and if we keep putting it off, it's going to catch up in future years. So thank you guys, and we'll see what Board of Finance can do with this. So we're on to Public Works Engineering now. You'll see line 33 is still $1 at So if you guys have questions on this one, could likely talk to it. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Do you guys have any questions for Chris why this is $1?
No.
Okay. And just a little, maybe a very brief update. Chris is actively working with Old Mystic Fire Department on trying to come up with a good temporary solution that will help the residents on the Groton side with the issue with not having access to a fire hydrant. So that will probably be coming up to the Board of Finance in February. But so for now, we'll leave that as $1 to keep the line open, but understanding that we don't have the funds this year to do a full replacement. So thank you. The next line is, line 36, Pawcatuck Pump House, roof replacement and masonry repairs. This was, this has been in, this was in, it made, I think, to a late round of the budget last year and then ultimately got put down to $1. They're requesting the $50,000. As a reminder, this is the facility that it literally takes an act of Congress to decommission, as I understand it. The Army Corps of Engineers is expecting us to make at least basic repairs along the way. But again, I don't know if Chris or Tom or Barbara want to come in more on this one.
No, and that's what you said. It does literally take an act of Congress to decommission the Pawcatuck Dike. They come annually to inspect the dike and give us a very long report of items that they require us to address. This has been a CIP project request for quite a while, and it just continues to be on our list. If we don't make these repairs, the condition rating on the dike levee system will continue to decrease and ultimately result in us being put in a place where we would be unable to get grant funding if there was damage to the facility in a storm event. And so that would, what will happen if we don't fund it? That's what's going to happen. But right now the dike system itself is in, I would say, good to fair condition overall. This is just an item that continues to be on the list.
Clarification. Good morning, Chris Greenlaw, Town Engineer. I just want to clarify with this. Good morning. This is the Pawcatuck Pump House roof replacement and masonry repair that we're also speaking to?
Yeah, it's all the dike.
This line item?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. And I just want to reiterate that the original roof was from 1962, and we're looking for the replacement of this, and this would be funded over 3 years. So if it's funded over 3 years with the current estimates we have, we'd be looking to replace that roof and repointing repairs the exterior brick facade. This building is imperative that we have these improvements because it houses actually 2 diesel engines that pump stormwater into the Pawcatuck River. So I just wanted to speak specifically to the efforts for the Pawcatuck Pump House roof replacement for your consideration.
So this is June Stark. I do have a couple of questions. I was wondering, Barbara, you mentioned what the consequences are. So if we don't do anything and reduce, there's a couple of items in the budget related to the pump house. If we reduce them all to $1 this year, so what happens if we don't do anything and it requires an act of Congress to decommission it? What kind of funding could we possibly lose in the future? Like I wanted to know what the consequences are of not doing it.
It basically, they have if you maintain your structure, your dike levee system to a specific level, which we're at right now, then we would be eligible for grant funding for repair if it was damaged in some sort of a large storm event. And
okay.
and that is all. That is all that they have to offer. But they do not fund repairs or maintenance in any way. That's up to the town to pay for that work.
And Barbara, could you If a storm surge comes in, even though it's not up to that full certification level, does it work to protect any properties currently?
Tom, I'll let Tom answer.
The original design on it was that it would protect the commercial properties within that perimeter. So I think what everyone gets confused on is that they think it's there to protect the homes, and really it's not. It was only designed in 1962 or 3 to protect the manufacturing area that's down there now. So some of those buildings are filled up with tenants, but not nearly as they were when the Cottrell Printing Press Company was there, and Boston Staple was there, and these other companies were there. So it's functional now. We're able to close the gates. The pumps are fully functional. So the whole structure works, as well as the mechanical portions of it do work. So I would echo what Barbara said earlier, that as long as we make a good effort to do some of the repairs, which we've been doing, and we try to do the lesser expensive ones as we can, and we do some of the ones that we can ourselves in-house, I don't think they're going to say, hey, look, that you have to take the thing down, or we're closing it down. And so what they do is they kind of derate you over time. And it's, as any federally funded thing, when they come here, they have to write down anything they see, take pictures of it, and document all of it. It's not necessarily a red flag on any of these, but it is something that they document annually when they come down. Just as an aside, the inspector who was here last year said that the general condition, even though the age of all the ones he does in New England, he would put it in the top 4. So I kind of felt good about that when he did the inspection. So I don't know if that answers anyone's question, but that's the gist of it.
So another question I have then is, considering we have 2 very large items in this budget that we have to fund, and one is the dash and body cams for the police department, and then the completion of the rebuilding of the tennis courts, because that was started. I mean, those 2 together, it's just under $1 million. Is this something that we could conceivably put off for another year? And I know there's like 3 items in this budget that have to do with the pump house. Is this something that we could just reduce them down to $1 and then have them in the budget for the following year, just so that we have the money to pay for these 2 other items that are kind of mandatory? That's just my ask, the question.
It's hard for me.
It's hard to say. Honestly, in the list a little bit, probably to the fire suppression line abandonment. And that's been a one that they've brought up in the last few years. Originally, the camera and come up with a solution to fill the lines. And it's a little more complicated because they actually drew from the river the water to put fires out at one point. So that's one that comes up all the time.
So I guess if we're looking at minimal effort on the dike, I would recommend minimally funding the fire line project to be able to start with some exploratory and some design on that. And I mean, that, do you know what line item that is?
It's 55.
Yeah, 55.
So line item 55. So it's very critical to the Army Corps when they come. And I say, I'd say it's top on their list of things that they would like us to address. And so I think if we fund it with enough so that we can get a consultant in and start making progress on at least a bit of design, then they'll be happy that we're making some form of progress. So.
Okay.
If I may, so for the current line we're on, 36, perhaps we put that one at $1, and then when we get down to line 55, keep that at the full 25,000. And we can discuss it more when we get down there. But Deb and June, would you agree that this $1 for the roof replacement and masonry repairs, and the 50 pushed out to the following year?
This is Debbie. I would agree. I did have one other quick question, and I think you explained it. So this really just benefits a small group of properties. This isn't something that benefits Westerly at all, as well?
Not really. No, it protects that. It's almost like if you can picture a horseshoe or a semicircle. It protects just that one specific area. and that was the original design to do it.
Yes. So if you drove down Mechanic Street and you see the walls that close, in between those walls that close on the road, is the area that's protected, and only that area.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm fine with going down to $1. Thank you.
Are you okay with that?
We're fine with that.
Okay, thanks. And June, you're good with the $1 for line 36?
Yes.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, so the next one that I think, I don't think we need to talk about it much, but maybe Chris, if you want to come in briefly on the South Anguilla Bridge project, line 39 at $1.
Yes. Currently, we have funding that will facilitate the analysis and preparation of bid documents for a parapet wall repair. So pursuant to those efforts this year for the analysis and design, we would be coming back looking for future funding via the CIP to make a request to initiate those construction activities. That's why you see for the next year out a placeholder at this time. So we have money in the account to facilitate the design and analysis, and that's in preparation for that future request for repairs. So currently this year, $1.
June, do you have any questions? If not, we can go to the next line. Chris, thank you very much, and thank you for all the bridge work. So the next one would be line 43, Washington Street drainage improvements. That was funded last year at $50,000, this year at $18,000. It's an A. Again, if you guys want to give a very brief summary, feel free.
Yes. So the town's drainage system is severely compromised by an existing Amtrak culvert and a filled-in tidal marsh to the south of that. So this is a complex project requiring coordination between Amtrak, DEEP, property owners. This project is currently under design, and the funding requested is to supplement the estimated construction cost. So this is currently, we're going to continue with this design and eventually forge forward to put together a bid document.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions, Deb or June?
No questions. Nope.
It's a critical project. It'll be so exciting when it's completed. And thank you for your guys' ongoing work on this one. So that'll stay. The next one, we shockingly maybe have some good news to share. The Coogan Boulevard culvert rehabilitation is at $1. Chris, do you want to give a summary there?
Exactly. Those good news were my first two words. So as part of our bridge preservation program, one of the things we discovered was from our asset understanding is that the Coogan Boulevard culvert is such that it has a higher rating than anticipated. So what that means is we would like to defer funding request at this time. And the reason we're deferring it is because I referred to what I call we categorized and we looked at the condition of the culvert, and it's believed at this time that we could defer any activities or any construction activities because we have, as part of our bridge assets, many other bridges in front of it that needs imminent structural repairs or replacement. So kind of good news, bad news at this time with regard to the Coogan Boulevard culvert. We would like to have a placeholder of actually $1 and revisit that in the future.
It's always nice to have a little good news. Deborah, June, if no questions, then
No questions.
Chris could
No
give,
question.
again, Chris, just the trend of bridges, of Lantern Hill, just a brief Lantern Hill update, why we have that down at $1 now.
Yes. So currently, we're proposing a structural interim repair is being explored to extend the service life of the bridge for another 5 or 10 years. Funds for the structural interim repairs were approved in the January Board of Finance meeting. So it's it is planned that a repair and design cost will be shared with the town of Ledyard. So again, this Lantern Hill Bridge is a bridge that we share with Ledyard. We had a memorandum of understanding, and due to budget constraints, I understand that the replacement of the bridge was not going to be funded. So one of the things that we look to achieve with our bridge preservation project is that when a bridge is not funded, basically this is going to buy us time, this structural interim repair, and it's going to give us the opportunity to look at the bridge. And what we learned is that this bridge is going to need some structural interim repair to keep it safe and to keep a certain load rating, at least for passenger vehicles. So at this time, we're asking for $1 for the Lantern Hill Bridge.
Thank you. Just to let you guys know, we do have a call this week with Ledyard Mayor Fred Allen and Tim O'Brien, Board of Finance Chair, to talk in more detail. Obviously, Ledyard residents, as well as our own fire chief in Old Mystic, all really want to see this bridge fully replaced. They advocated for this last year. It was not put in the budget, it was cut. And again, we're advocating this year. And Chris thankfully came up with, I think, a very creative, while it is short term, but a creative solution, because if not, the bridge would be closing in about 5 months to any traffic. So this is something that I think we found a compromise with the Board of Finance. And hopefully, yeah, Chris said Ledyard still has to officially prove it on their end, but the indication is that they'll share the costs and it'll buy us some time. So that's the $1. Do you guys have any questions on that one?
No, I like the proactiveness, and just being able to extend the life another 5 to 10 years is really awesome.
Agreed.
Better financial situation by then. Willow Street Drainage, line 48. This is another pretty exciting project. Chris, if you want to give a quick overview.
Sure. So the Willow Street Drainage, or the Fourth Voting Hall Drainage Project, has plans, permits, bid documents completed. The next phase of this project is bid solicitation, with construction anticipated for the summer. We're anticipating in the summer months, hopefully, low flow conditions with water, hopefully. And the funding requested is to supplement the estimated construction cost, and that was to include an effort for paving. So the original charge of the engineering design task was to update the box culvert and put in a tidal valve to reduce flooding. The additional monies being requested would be advantageous such that we could put in as a bid alternate, perhaps get some paving around the building. So that's what you see there is the additional monies requested to supplement that estimated construction cost. And we're looking to have that under construction this summer.
Guys, just as a reminder, this could be potential parking that's much needed in a kind of appropriate area for downtown Mystic. It also could, the house has to stay. It's been deemed historic. And so in the operating budget, there's some money to start doing some work to improve that. So like Chris said, being able to have some ADA accessibility around the building would be excellent. And some additional parking, as well as dealing with drainage and flooding all at the same time. Hopefully it'll be a win-win. Do you guys have any questions for Chris?
No.
No questions. It's great presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. You guys are an amazing team. Thank you. So that's all set for engineering. So now to public facilities management. And the poor town hall parking lot replacement, line 52. This is rated a D. It's $1. I think the last saved, I was a small child, but there are some safety concerns. Barbara could maybe, or Tom could talk to it. But at the same time, just seeing how financially constrained we are, that we need to find places to cut the budget without impacting services. This is one area, I hate even saying it, but I would probably suggest putting it at $1 and just continuing to advocate that in future years, we do need to come up with a plan to actually do a parking lot replacement. But Tom, feel free to push back on me or anyone on the town hall side. That's fine.
Yeah, and I would say, it's been pushed back, it's fine. But what we will end up doing this year, and hopefully we'll have some funding left in the operational budget, is minimally we're going to have to replace the aprons in and out of the parking lot, because when you come in, they're crumbling. And so we're going to, if it's not approved, we're going to take minimal measures to improve some of the safety related issues and maybe patch some of the trenches by in-house highway staff. So we can patch some trenches that don't need a paving box. But we've got a backup plan, I guess is my summary.
I suggest we, and again, Devin, you're up for discussion, but move this from a D to a C to indicate that for future years, we do really need to take a look at this. Or for Barbara and Tom and team, are you okay with keeping it at a D for now?
No, I especially if Barbara, if you think you're gonna have some operating monies, and you do line item transfers to like fix the aprons and the ditches and whatnot. So you're gonna be like actively looking at trying to keep the parking lot at least where it is and not have further decline. That means it's already being worked on. I see at a minimum, I think is what it should be.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our ultimate goal is when it is repaved, we'd like to try and change some of the drainage and change some of the flow so it's flowing into the open grass area and not collecting so much into a closed drainage collection system. And so that's why, we're going to make minimal repairs to keep it limping along. And like I said, my goal is to get the full funding so that we can, minimize the amount that we actually put into a closed collection system.
Okay. Yep.
Which is actually one of the things that we're supposed to do as part of the MS4 permit. The consultant's going to be coming and looking at all of our pavement surfaces and making recommendations. So until we get all the funding that we need to do it right, we shouldn't touch it at all.
Okay. So we're going to make it $1 and change the rating to a C. Is that right, Danielle?
Yeah, Deb, do you agree?
No, I do agree. And I like the idea, Barbara, of maybe this being one of the areas we look at green infrastructure and maybe getting rid of, if we can, some of those closed systems. But I do agree with going to $1 and raising it to a C.
Thank you very much. Okay, Town Hall HVAC improvements, line 53, that's a B at 190,000. And then just to say, if you want to talk about at the same time, line 54 is Human Services HVAC replacement phase 2, which is a B at $31,700.
And I'll just talk generally on both of these buildings. We did an assessment of the entire town hall, and we found some critical issues with the HVAC system. One of them was that we have no fresh air ventilation on the middle floor of the building, which the Board of Finance has already approved for us to address that issue. The next highest critical item on that report was that our boiler is past its useful life in town hall. So if we have failure of the boiler, we'll have failure of heat for the building and town hall will close. And we have we've had a history of being emergency reactive to failure of equipment. And since there's no redundant system in this town hall, we really need to think forward and start putting redundancy and start putting in equipment that's not past its useful life. And so that is what the first amount of funding is for the town hall. The other funding for human services is also to continue to update age components in the heating and ventilation system at the human services building. It's not a full replacement, It's just replacing items that is past its useful life. That building has been in use since 2001 by Human Services. It was upgraded in 2001, so you have components in there that are 20 years old. We're replacing the roof because it's 20 years old. That was already approved by the Board of Finance. And this is, you know, the things that we're asking for are just your typical maintenance items required for a public building to remain functioning. So that's all I have.
Barbara, I have a question. For
Yes.
town hall, so when the systems fail and town hall needs to close, obviously then it's an emergency and we're being reactive. And these are not like off the shelf pieces of equipment that we can have fixed in a week or two, right? I mean, it's months before we would be able, I'm assuming, you can correct me, but like the timeline, yeah.
If we
Go ahead.
have a boiler failure, then it would take months to order a new boiler and replace it. Even if we have components, boilers consist of what are they, Tom?
Circulator pumps.
Well, but the different pieces in the boiler.
The sections?
Yeah, so boilers have different sections, and so in the St. Michael's School now, we have sections of that boiler fail. And these sections are not sections that are sitting on the shelf. These sections are sections that need to be ordered and fabricated. Last year, we had a circulator pump fail here in Town Hall. And as a result of that, that wasn't a shelf item either. And it required me, you know, we had about half of this the top floor in Town Hall without heat. So, you know, I had to be creative. I hired an electrician to extend our electrical panel on the third floor, run wires into offices so that we could plug in, and I went and bought space heaters and heated offices with space heaters with extension cords running down from the ceiling. And so that was, you know, we were able to function. People were wearing their coats for a while. We were able to stay open. But those were the conditions that we had placed town hall employees in because of the aging system. And, you know, so I'm pleading on behalf of the employees in town hall, you know, and the public that come here for services to start putting some funding into maintaining, you know, the systems in the buildings.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Great. June, Deb, sorry, any other questions?
No, June actually asked what I was thinking of this. Basically, this is for the boiler, which is not just to run out to the store and buy one. So thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
And then any questions on the services HVAC from you guys? Nope, good. Okay. Yeah, again, I think it's, you know, we have older buildings and older infrastructure, and it's just that time that we're hitting a lot of these bigger ticket items. But I think the work that's already been done has been great, and there are improvements underway. So hopefully we can finish these projects out. Line 55, the Pawcatuck Pump House Fire Suppressant Line Abandonment is a B at the 25,000. We previously discussed it. I'd like to keep that one in there. I think as Barbara and Tom shared, this seems like the top priority from the Army Corps. It'll show we're at least taking on one project a year. Any other comments on that one?
This is Debbie. Have we looked at the cost of a consultant? I mean, is it possible to have somebody come in to start some preliminary work, maybe for less than 25,000 and keep it in, but maybe not for quite that much?
I think with the departure of the last town engineer and us catching up on things, Chris and I don't really have a depth of knowledge on it to say yes or no. But you know, anything that you could give us would allow us to, you know, proceed in some way with the design. So. I guess one of the things that we're going to have to do as part of this, and and if you gave us less money, we could start on this, is we're going to actually have to have divers go, and we don't this is a line for fire suppression, and the inlet for this line is actually underwater in the river, and so we don't have any details or plans on this inlet infrastructure out in the river. And so we need to actually pay a diver to go out there and do an investigation of that inlet and give us further details so that we can understand how to close it. That's why we can't just pump, material in the line to fill it, because the opposite side of that line is an open line to the river. So if you wanted to reduce it, we could start with exploratory.
Thank you. That would be the one thing I would suggest, Danielle, might be to reduce it, but keep something in there so they can at least get started.
What are your thoughts on that approach? June, to put you on the spot. So I guess.
Oh no, I know this has been talked about a couple of times, and someone had said just pour cement down it, but Barbara, you make a good point. If we don't know how open it is at the other end, yeah, we could be creating an environmental disaster. So, I mean, I don't want to say let's do 15,000 or 10, Barbara. I'll leave that up to you. If this is something that could be reduced, so that you could hire divers, you could get an idea of what can be done with this. Then I'll leave that number up to you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. I know we had, we were working with a consultant about 1.5 years ago, and we'll reach out to him to get a minimal amount of what they think is necessary to start working on it. We'll review the old file. I just haven't looked at it lately with everything, all the other things that we do here.
Circus juggling act. No, so I think so do you guys want to just keep this at the 25, and then for the Board of Finance meeting, they'll sharpen that number, or do you want to reduce it to 15?
Go ahead, Deb.
I was going to say, I'm okay with keeping it at 25 until they come up with, a different number. That's
Yeah,
fine.
that's I'm in agreement with that. So.
Okay, perfect. So we'll leave that one as is. And then line 56, West Broad Street school repairs. This is an A, 50,000. This will be ongoing. It's part of our lease. This is the minimum or the maximum that we've entered into the agreement for our part of the repairs that we'll do on the building. So it's kind of, the number pretty much is what it is on that one. Do you guys need any further comments, or is that one good? All right, thanks. Then line 57 is Donahue Park security lighting. I'm not sure if Barbara or someone from beautification or EDC wanted to speak to this, but essentially this came in as a request from beautification and supported by the Economic Development Commission to improve the lighting in Donahue Park. We're trying to look at what other towns are doing, exploring if there are any sort of solar renewable lighting options. Also, the EDC probably a little over a year ago had a community conversation on downtown Pawcatuck, and one of the key items that kept coming up was lighting, not just for Donahue Park, but for downtown. So this was something that we wanted to advocate for, and hopefully we'll be able to sharpen the number and get some better examples before the February Board of Finance meeting. If anyone else is on that wants to speak to that.
No, Danielle, I would agree with you. I've heard, from a number of people. I would just say maybe if we could sharpen the number, but I think it is something that a public safety issue that we should look at.
Yeah, and I just want to share that I know that, and we talk about the public safety, but the actual recently used syringes have been found in the park. So that's where the urgent request for this extra lighting has been put forward. So I'm in agreement with leaving it there like that.
Well, and I'll just add in that, you know, I didn't get a specific cost for the lighting. I think it would be prudent to have somebody come in and look at all of the lighting and determine where we have areas that need to be filled, where we have darkness, and just to share on what it costs to replace lighting and fixtures is we had two fixtures. We had two fixtures that fell on the bridge over to the borough. I don't know if when you drive over the borough, if you drive over that bridge, you look to the right, there's two fixtures that are missing. And just replacing those two fixtures without any electrical work is $8,000. And that's just putting a new fixture where we already have power. And so I think, you know, when you're looking at adding lighting to downtown, to that park downtown, I think it's going to be a project that will extend past 1 year and past $10,000. And that was my minimum budget that I put in to evaluate it and then start working on a project to make the proper replacements and the proper additions of lighting.
Thank you, Barbara. That's helpful. It's never as easy as it seems, but thank you. Deb or June, any feedback on that one?
No.
All right, so that'll stay where it is. So thank you. Obviously, public hearing highway, you guys are welcome to stay on, but don't feel like you have to. Thank you guys very much. So WPCA.
Thanks very much.
Okay, WPCA, we have nothing this year thanks to the bond, so we can move past that. So solid waste, I believe John Petty places on to talk about line 65 and 66. Line 65 is the wheel loader, the 25,000, and then the foam filled tires at 5,000. John, do you want to share on this one?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. The first item, the front wheel loader. We basically are starting a 6-year set aside so that at the end of 6 years we can purchase a new loader. We had a rough year with our newer loader last year, so we ended up doing a lot of replacements, and it cost us about $25,000. I think it's prudent to start planning to replace one of the two we have. It's how we have done it so that we don't have to come in with one big request, and so that we're not doing a lease purchase kind of thing. I don't know if there are any questions on that, but the loader is critical to running the transfer station. We have basically our primary loader and then a backup. We use both of them pretty much all of the time, but you can't run the transfer station without one. And I think the fact that we've had to put so much into one already, we're hoping these are some pretty significant, we had to do a motor head, all new exhaust, hydraulic system in one. So we've replaced a lot. So we're thinking 6 years is a reasonable time frame, but it is time to get started on that. The other item, Danielle, we've talked about a bit, and we're kind of almost changing our strategy. So we were replacing 4 foam-filled tires on the loader. But in getting a better specific price, 2 of our 4 tires were retreads and 2 were new. So we're thinking instead of replacing the 4 where I had requested $15,000 to replace 4 tires, we may only want to replace 2 tires, which would be about $6,800. Rotate the 2 in the back to the front, and then do retreads probably in a year or 2. So at this time, I'm thinking if I only need $6,800 to buy 2 new tires, I don't even think it needs to be in CIP. And I think it makes perfect sense. The 2 we replaced were already retreaded, so we can't retread them. But the other 2 that probably have maybe a year or a little more life in them, we could retread them in a year or 2. So we just think it makes more sense. We'll save about $6,000–7,000. So if that makes sense to everybody, what I'd do, I guess, is pull it out of CIP altogether, purchase the 2 new foam tires for $6,800 out of my existing budget at the probably in June, and then hopefully in 2 years do a retread on the other 2.
Thanks. Any questions for John?
John, this is June. I have a question about the $25,000. I mean, it's the same question because of our body cams and dash cams and the tennis court expenses. Could we, instead of $25 over 6 years, could we do $30,000 a year over 5 and have it earmarked for the 22-23 SIP?
I would say that would be fine because it gives us that loader at the same amount of time. My only request would be that, and I did this last year with foam filled tires and it didn't happen, that we then turn it into an A so that we don't lose a year.
Okay.
So if I have no problem with that because it gets us into the same period of time, but then I also know that it's now going to be funded. And
Okay.
you might need to put more than $1 in, maybe $100 or whatever the magic number is to say, yes, we agree it's in the system, so that it doesn't slide to a B again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Jim, is $1 enough to convert something to an A in the following year? This is a question for Jim Sullivan.
Yeah, Jim had said
No.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'd say
Okay.
no.
All right. So what do we have to do?
I say put in $5,000.
Okay.
Okay. Debbie, I agree.
All right. So we're going to take out line 66. Should we leave it? Do we leave it in and just put $1 there for line 66, and then we'll do 65 down to $5,000?
Well,
So
yeah,
Go ahead.
66 to stay in at the 5,000.
say that again.
And what happened last year with the foam filled 66? Are you recommending that we do keep that at 5,000 for the foam filled tires?
No. So my question there is, if I have a $6,800 bill for 2 foam filled tires instead of 4, I think that's under $10,000, so I can pay for that out of my current budget. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we could just remove foam filled tires because the plan would be a year or 2 from now, we would retread the other 2, which is significantly less, probably about half of the 68. So after talking with Tony, he thinks that doing that is just as good as buying 4 new tires, and we're not wasting, a year or 2 of life on the retread. So if I can just remove that, we could take that out of there completely and then drop the other one to 5,000 for this year.
So at the end, if it's fine with you guys, we'll make a motion at the end to remove line 66 foam filled tires from the SIP entirely. Jim, would that be how we'll go forward?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for getting really creative as always. So Deb and June, are you all set? Line 65 front wheel loader will change to 5,000 with the understanding that then next year it should be an A, and then the foam filled tires will remove.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Building department, nothing this year. And John, thank you. Obviously, you're welcome to stay, but can also help off.
Okay, thanks.
The next one is line 74, the George Kraus tennis court rebuild. This is an A. Last year we put 159,000 in it. This year we're asking for the 441,000. This is again, it's in the town SIP, but it is obviously a shared project and expense with the school. They're located at the high school grounds. Leanne or Rich, are you on to talk about this?
Yes, hi, I'm here. It's Leanne. I do have a little bit of more information. And again, it's a little bit tough to compete with roads and bridges. But we believe that refurbishing and renovating these courts is a part of a vital recreation, important for economic development in our community, as well as our residents at large. We've had more increase in program growth and revenue with our tennis programs over the past 12 months than any other program. We had our first Stonington Tennis Open and involved high school children raising money for the neighborhood center. So the courts are definitely needed. We are in the process right now of moving our ad hoc committee forward and choosing a design firm. And the committee has actually chosen a firm and sent the information to you, Danielle, as well as Jim Sullivan for review and for signature. We're just awaiting a final draft of the contract. The design process is coming in at about $35,000. Through this, the discussions we've been having with this firm, we've discovered that over the past 3 years, since we started seeking out information on funding this project, that the cost is slightly increased. And of course, some of the plans come in with a bit more bells and whistles than we're looking for. So we're really trying to drill down to what we need. Primarily, we're still focusing on the post-tension concrete rebar methodology. It comes with a 25-year, I believe, guarantee, crack-free guarantee. Just to remind you all right now, our department has been spending our program revenue funds, not money from the general fund, upwards of $20,000 a year just to maintain the cracks. So this is a project that if it's not completed, we're not sure, especially with our decrease in revenue overall over the past year, that we would be able to keep up with these expenses. And over the past 10 years, we've easily spent over $80,000 in repairs. So we had budgeted $600,000 total for the project. Subtract $35,000 of that, which is going towards our design firm that we're going to be working with. And we're coming in with numbers right now upwards of $700,000 to $800,000. Again, that's really scaling back with just doing the court repair, fencing that would include windscreens. Right now, we're putting the windscreens up and down ourselves, new gates, and hopefully lighting. As of right now, we have LED motion sensor lights installed on the basketball court, but we're also looking at the actual need that we would have for lighting at the tennis courts because it is a significant extra expense and the lights are underutilized as of right now. We weren't turning them on much at all this past summer or last summer, and they're turned on based on requests from residents. Obviously, if we had motion lights, people could go out there at their will and play as they would like to do. But if we're looking to save money, we might not want to move forward with that at this time, but rather put the structure in place so we could go forward at a different time. Right now, I don't have the solid numbers from the design firm. We hope to be getting them within the next week or so we can start drilling them to committee. As I said, we have moved forward with selecting them, and we do look forward to get this information before our Board of Finance presentation.
So much. I know this has been a lot of work and you guys have done a great job collaborating with lots of different parties on this one. Deborah, June, any questions for Leanne on this one?
So Leanne, if I can repeat what I think I heard. So you're saying that you initially had budgeted $600,000. So that's why the 159 last year and 441 for this year. But in reality, it's between $700,000 and $800,000. So that by the time, all right, so that by the time you come forward to the Board of Finance, this number 441 could be higher?
It could be, that's correct. Now, at this point, we have, so 600,000 was the total, 35,000 is what we're going to be putting in right now for the design firm. So hopefully we won't be exceeding a $200,000 ask. But the reality is over the past couple of years, the costs have increased in general. And this is commonplace with projects such as this. So for just the court replacement alone, we are looking at $500,000 to $700,000. That's just for the courts and the fencing. Obviously, those are the most important items. Some of these numbers that we've been presented have also included, seating for around the court area and landscaping. We're not interested in even delving into any of that. We're simply looking at the structure of the courts, the safety of the courts, the fencing, and hopefully the lighting.
Okay. And so if your actual final ask, it's not 441, but let's say it's 541 or 641, can that be, does it have to be completely funded this year? Or can that be spread out over 2 years?
So as of right now, we're trying to do the project this summer if possible, once the new fiscal year begins, simply because we don't want to put another 20,000 in to just get the court playable for the school and for community use for another season. So there are concerns that the repair that was done last year, it's only been holding for maybe a year at a time. Obviously, if we had to do that to save money in the current fiscal year, or the upcoming fiscal year, we could talk about maybe moving that forward and asking for an additional appropriation to help us offset some of those repair costs in the meantime from the Board of Finance. But there is a concern that if we don't move this forward this summer, that it's just going to be more costly to the town in the long run.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. I think it is a good point to keep in mind that, you know, just the delay we've already put forward has maybe cost 200,000 in addition to the annual upkeep cost. Do you guys have any other thoughts or questions on this one?
No, this is Debbie. I just, think it does make sense when you do present the actual price to keep the lighting separate, because that could be an option to be completed in a future year. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great point. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, June. Okay, so we'll leave that as an A for 441. It's a big one, but I think we need to do it. And Leanne, of course, welcome to stay on, but we'll move on to planning now.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I think we have both Keith and Sue on. And just as a reminder, also, I'm not sure if we have anyone from the Economic Development Commission or from the Climate Change Task Force, but the Planning Department, just as a reminder for people who haven't tuned into CIP meetings in the past, the Planning Department often encompasses other community requests within their budget. And this is often an area where we look at for either revitalization projects or kind of some creative projects or other things that the community has really advocated and asked for. Sadly, I think as we've seen in past years, and this year is even harder than many in the past, this is also an area we often have to do some significant cuts. Some of it might come from us today, some of it will probably come from the Board of Finance, and that's not to say these aren't very worthwhile projects and important areas. I think just as we see, I think we have over a $4 million SIP just on our side, not including the Board of Ed, which will go through their own process, and then we'll all come together and really need to whittle this down by the millions. So I'm going to preface that as we go into Planning Department. So the first line is line 77, engineering and construction of new sidewalks. As a reminder, we created this last year as a new line item to kind of encompass one place for the engineering and construction of new sidewalks. Since that time, we were very happy and pleased that we succeeded in getting a $600,000 grant from the state, thanks to work of past selectmen and elected officials at the state level. So now Sue and Keith are leading on that charge, and they can talk in very brief overview, but basically that $943,500 number includes the $600,000 revenue offset we will be getting from the grant. So just to keep that in mind, because I know it looks like $1 million request, but 600,000 will be coming back to us. The state does require a local match, so the part of that has to stay in there. And the reason we got to this 943 figure is, as of now, this is the estimate of what it will cost to complete the entire project. This number could likely go up though slightly once we finish. We're at the 90% plan mark. But I don't know if you guys have questions for Sue or Keith on this one.
I actually don't have any questions. This is an important project we've been working so hard to get done. So
Yeah, I don't have any questions either.
Great, thank you guys. So we'll keep that as an A, we'll keep it as it is. And anyone who's listening, definitely continue to advocate at the Board of Finance level for this line item, and also engage with Sue and Keith. I think we'll have a community conversation on that coming up in a few weeks. So thank you to you guys for all your work on that. Line 78 breaks my heart to say the bicycle and walking plan, Greenway plan. This is something I care a lot about and I would love to see us fund it, but recognizing where we are in our budget, I think it should stay at $1. I'm not sure if it makes sense or if I would get any support to change it from an E to even a D or a C. This is something I'd love to look at in a future fiscal year. But Deb and June, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
Well, I know an E sounds like a bad letter, but it just means it's deferrable. It doesn't mean that it's not important or a want, but it can be deferred. So I'm okay with leaving it that way.
I'm okay as well.
All right, fair. I'll cry after the meeting. No, I'm kidding. We'll get there. We're gonna get there. We'll look for some creative grants, maybe. So the next one, line 79, the plan of conservation and development as a C. This is 30,000 put away each year. We have to do these plans every 10 years. We didn't fund it last year again because of COVID, so we really shouldn't skip this year, or we'll be in a tough spot in a few years when we need to do this plan again. But Keith's on if you have any questions for him.
So Keith, oh wait, right, okay. So can you tell us how much is already in the pot for this?
Nothing. We don't have any money saved.
We don't have any. Okay. And what does it normally cost? Like what do we have to accumulate in order to do an updated plan?
Well, when we did this in 2004, the POCD cost about $120,000. It was less the last time for the last POCD in 2015, which was a lot more in-house, and it was a lot more of a smaller look at the town's needs. So what we're hoping is we can have a much more comprehensive view of the town's needs and wants for the next POCD. And that's what we're estimating the cost would be.
And that should be done in 2025. It's like once every 10 years this gets done.
Right. And it is, at least a 2-year process of developing the plan and getting public input from the town.
Okay.
So to understand, so you're saying maybe somewhere around 120 ballpark, and it needs to be accumulated by 2025 or by 2027, or kind of
2024, because we'd have to start ahead of it being due.
we have to start. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
So true to fashion, we're a bit behind with our funding schedule.
So then the concern that I have is, as a C, it's going to get cut. And I mean, I know because C's get cut. So then that's why, we're always more reactive instead of proactive, because we're at the point of where it's urgent and we have to fund something. So if we don't have anything in it, so this is something that if it's a requirement, then should we do like $5,000 again, just to make sure that it's and have it be a B, and it's something that we need to start funding for the next couple of years, so that we have the money to do it in 5 years?
Yeah, I'd even say keep the 30 as it is, but change the C to a B, just like we said, because I mean, really, I think we're about 3 years out before we need to at least start funding it.
So you want to change it to B, and what was the last? What did you say after that?
I'd keep the 30,000 because I think we're already significantly behind our funding goal, and in future years we'll have to probably up this to 50,000 if we're going to 20 mark. And because Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd need to start funding this within the next 3 years. Yes.
The next 3 years, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, but again, I'm just looking for ways where, these things can't, they can't fall through the cracks. We have to be committed to funding them. But just because of the the body cams and the tennis courts, right? So that's $1 million. I'm just looking at ways where we could try to perhaps move it into 5,000 this year. But I know that when Jim presents this to the Board of Finance, he has, future years for each one of these line items as to where the funding needs to be. And if this is just an area where we could perhaps drop it to 5, but the next year have it be at 50, and so on, where it's a B, and then next year it becomes an A. So I wouldn't, I don't want it to be a C if this is something that needs to be done and we need to start funding it. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, it's creative. Keith, or Sue, how uncomfortable would it make you if we change this? We upgraded it to a B, reduce the amount to 5,000, but with the indication to Jim that we'd like to see the next 2 years funded at probably 55,000 each year.
Yeah, I think, we don't have any plans on spending this money now. It's just putting it aside. So, I mean, if there's, a somewhat realistic expectation that maybe there could be more in future years, that might make sense.
Jim, or
I'm okay with that. This is Debbie.
so we'll make the official motion later, but Jim, just to note, we'll be changing that to line 79 from a C to a B, but also decreasing it to 5,000, but with the request that the next 2 years future funding be at 55,000 instead of 30.
Okay, understood.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, so the next one, line 80, is the community tourism finding sign plan. That's a C, last dollar. Right now we have it in, at $5,000. I know Sue's been working on this and was actually able to whittle this down from a much larger ask, and the EDC has been leading on this. So I don't know if Deb or June, if you have questions for Sue or if anyone's on for EDC.
No, I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions, but this is one of these things that, while, I think it's a great project, I think it's going to be hard this year to sell this. And there's a couple other ones when we really have to concentrate on public safety or, starting to accumulate money to fix our infrastructure. So I might actually advocate for putting this one down to $1 for this year.
Does Sue or Keith or anyone from the EDC want to react to that? Or if not, June, let us know what you think about Deb's proposal.
Well, I'm fine with putting it down to oops, I muted myself. Just being very realistic about where we are. I think it's best if we do the heavy lift and bring it down to $1 for this year. If the Board of Finance thinks it's important, they can always raise it, but I just know that in anticipation of the CIP being cut, that let's just do this here. So.
Okay, no, and again, I think to echo the sentiment, it doesn't mean it's not a worthwhile project. I know a lot of time and energy has gone into this, and hopefully it's something we can look at in future years when we might have a little more money to work with. So I sadly, I think, sorry to the EDC's efforts, and Sue and Keith, maybe we'll put this down for $1 for this year. Okay, so line 81, the comprehensive plan update zoning regulations, a B. Last year we advocated pretty hard for this one and got $1. You sense a theme here. But no, understandably, because of COVID, we had to make basically almost everything in planning went into $1 last year. So we're asking for 75,000. I know Keith and Sue have been doing outreach to try and sharpen number. So if they want to say a few words, but I'd say to me, this is probably one of our most pressing priority areas in planning SIP.
It absolutely is, Danielle. So Keith and I have reached out to some of the consultants across Connecticut who do this type of work, and also to some of the towns around us who've recently, done their regulations. Our regulations have been updated, cobbled together, to the point where we're not giving developers predictable outcomes. So if someone comes and they look at our regulations, and then again they look at our neighbors' regulations, Ledyard's were updated in 2018, Groton's were updated in 2020, and so they're much more modern. They're simpler to read. Our staff spends an enormous amount of time interpreting things for people, and our P&Z, in terms of our volunteers, spends a lot of time, interpreting things for people about what do we mean by the regulations. And so when I first came here, I actually asked Keith, on a day-to-day basis, what could we do to make that better? Did he have a list of, items that needed to be updated with the zoning regulations, just the small things that maybe we could accomplish here. When he got to 40, we stopped counting. So if we want to really get the long-term outcomes that we want here in town and the development stream that we're looking for, we need to give people a better idea of what's going to happen, so that they're not looking at our regulations and then looking at both of our neighbors and saying, oh, well, I easily know what I can do in Ledyard, I'll just go there instead. So that's something that's really important to us. And that's part of why we've really whittled down a lot of our other requests so far, because we really need to be able to put this money aside. We've put it aside in 2 years. And the number that we're getting between other towns around us and also the consultants that we've asked is on the low end about 120 and on the high end about 150. And the people on the high end of the 150 are people who've already spent the money, whereas the 120 are estimates from consultants who haven't done the work yet. So one of the things that was said to me was, because of how many public iterations go on with the zoning regulations and how much we need to take, the public's comments into account, that's part of what really drives this number, is how expensive that public interaction can be, not just at the beginning, but at the end of the process. So Keith and I agreed that this is, really, one of our top priorities. And so we actually took out a lot of other things just within the department ourselves to make sure that this really stayed as our number one priority.
I would absolutely agree. So I attend the planning and zoning meetings, virtually, of course, but it's all the different adaptations and the amendments to each one of to every part of our zoning regulations has made it really, 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 really cumbersome. So an update on our zoning regulations is absolutely essential. It's essential for adding to our tax base. Now it's essential for the growth of our community. I would agree 100%. So
I would also agree, and I appreciate how you guys have worked so hard to trim and put off other things. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. And yeah, I think we will continue to advocate hard for this one and sharpen the number as best we can. So with that, I think we can move, into line, sorry, I'm a little bit blind, on the climate, so the other ones were all set, the climate change adaptation and mitigation program. This was a $500,000 request put forward by Rick Newton during the CIP committee meeting.
Danielle, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
This is Jim. Can I interrupt for a second? I thought we were going to talk about line 83, the permit tracking, in our last meeting with Keith, because it wasn't really incorporated into the permit tracking plan for the building department. Is that something we were going to talk about, or am I misremembering?
Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're trying to see if we can find that in this fiscal year's budget. And I think it's gonna be about 15,000. We just got something, I think, in maybe even yesterday. Keith, correct me if I'm mistaken, or
Well, are we talking about that, the historical migration?
no, the open gov permit, like the building permit that we're using it for planning. The extension of that contract. Open gov, is that what they're called?
Okay.
Yeah, this is Patty. We don't have that estimate yet. We have the estimate for the historical migration, and we just asked today for the estimate for actually the permit. So they're two separate items, so we hope to get that soon. But I think that the 15,000, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, just covered the historical migration.
Right.
So
And
the permit tracking will be, on top of that. And we need to provide them with some additional information in order for them to get us an estimate on the permit tracking.
Right. The historical migration is just sort of taking all our old data sets, integrating it into this new OpenGov system.
Jim's question, should we put in any sort of placeholder for next fiscal year for the full, like adding planning onto the building permit tracking, lack of a better term, the permit tracking software, or do we think we'll be able to figure that out for this fiscal year?
I don't know, it might be difficult to sort of guess at what this might cost.
All right, yeah, Danielle, if we're not going to do it this year, then if you don't have a solid number, I would just leave it till next year.
But I'm saying if we're going to do it next fiscal year, we should, Danielle, I think your question is, should we be putting something in now?
Exactly. So
I do think we should, because I'll have a better sense within the next week, I think, or the next few days, what the cost for both pieces will be. But if we can't find the money in this fiscal year, I think we should put it in. And we can just put an estimate right now, and then when we get clarity within the next few days, we can update that.
So Jim, on that, would we say something like, and Devin, you guys obviously will have to weigh in on this, but the line 83 permit tracking, we'd like to add into as a B and put in a placeholder of $15,000 with the understanding that before the Board of Finance meeting that we'll get an actual concrete number from the vendor.
Okay. And what would we rate that, a C? A B?
I think it would have to be a B to even be really considered, but Devin, June, I share your sentiment that there's things that maybe could be put off to future years. I think Keith, briefly, I'm sorry, Keith, to put you on the spot because you weren't prepared, but this is part of that move from putting all of our permitting online to make it easier for residents as well as efficiency within the staff. And we have got approval last year for the building side, and it's integrating with other departments, but then to have planning also have the same kind of matching online system, they would need their own funding line item for this. So again, it is about efficiency and staff time, and also kind of for the residents and those people in town engaging with planning. But Keith, do you want to add anything?
No, that is the goal, is to sort of integrate our department in with that too. The building department is sort of the first phase in this OpenGov system as it's working out here.
Any questions or
So,
support?
so we're proposing making that a B and funding it with $15,000. Is that what I'm hearing?
That was what I suggested, and that Patty and Keith will get a firm number to the Board of Finance and to Jim within the next week or two.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I know we're not supposed to be adding more in. We're supposed to be taking.
So it's all part of efficiencies, right? We want people to develop where we have developable land, but it's a very inefficient process right now. So, having the permit tracking is just going to help.
An official motion at the end, but yeah, so line 83 will be changed to a B, and we'll put in $15,000 placeholder. And thank you, Jim, for reminding us about that one. So now on to climate change adaptation and mitigation program. So again, this one was, so line 84, this was put in at $500,000 request. This is obviously a very significant issue and something we can't keep putting off and need to be dealing with. With that said, again, because of the financial constraints and wanting to give the Board of Finance the most reasonable and workable SIP budget we can, noting they probably still are going to have to try and find somewhere to cut more out of this. I would suggest we change this to 50,000. That way we do have some funding in the shorter term in the SIP for any federal, particularly federal, but also state or private grants, pretty much all of which require some matching funds. We've actually already applied to one for the program. It's brand new. We're trying to look at areas where we already have projects, such as the Living Shoreline at the Mystic River Boathouse Park in partnership with the Seaport. Your likelihood your first year applying isn't great, so but potentially next year. So I do think having some money in this line item would be good to show that we have money available for these types of matching grants and programs. With that said, I also, following this, will share with the Climate Change Task Force a plan that we briefly talked about, but proposing to the Board of Finance, assuming we have some reserve fund in the spring, to create a resiliency fund similar to what Branford, Connecticut set up, and putting ideally $1 million. This would be for infrastructure, long-term investment needs, looking 20, 30, even 40 years out, that we start putting money away there based on what we have in our reserve fund. So all that long-winded way to say, I think we should reduce the 500,000 to 50,000, but with the stipulation that we will be advocating for a longer term sort of savings plan similar to our OPEB or other saving plans we already have in place. But for the long-term infrastructure needs, we might need to adapt to climate change.
So Danielle, I have I guess this is for Jim. Jim, how much money, this is an A, so how much money is already in this fund?
Just the $10,000 from last year, I believe.
Okay, so it was $10,000 and it was added and it was, and the A just means we're going forward, we're going to continue to add to it.
Yes.
Dan, I would throw this out there. I mean, the 50,000 is pretty healthy, and there's other, I mean, this is an area that is of great importance. I just want to be sure that, we don't have, I mean, I just want to be sure that we're putting the right monies in the right line items. And if we can have a new adaptation line funded, perhaps even with bonding, all right? So, I mean, it's something that we could start to put money away. And when our debt service is reduced enough, where we could actually fund, something for the future in a lump sum and really have it start to work, I would really even be okay with just reducing this to $10,000 right now, to show that we're committed. I mean, having it funded last year really helped us maintain our AAA status. So having money put in it at least at the same level as last year, but this is part of a larger conversation, right? So, I mean, there's other areas that we really need to, it's all part of the same conversation, that how it's outlined in our budget. We don't have all the right line items in our budget right now. So, again, it's because, I look at the police accountability bill and the body cams, the dash cams, and the tennis courts. So where can we, reasonably trim, for right now? But and then the fact that I like that it's an A. Anyway, that's what I would propose right now.
I actually agree with June on that. And I think that, like June, this ties in with a lot of other things. We need to start looking, we've got the bridge plan that Barbara and Chris talked about, looking at the infrastructure of the bridges. Then there's the WPCA and the roads. We need to look at this as a big picture and again, make sure we have the money going to the right place. And I do like June's idea of maybe looking at doing some bonding for this in the future, but I think we have some work to do. So I don't have an issue with just coming in at 10 here, but continuing to fund it to show, you know, we are committed.
And if I could also add, you know, when I look at updating our zoning regulations, I mean, as far as climate change adaptation and mitigation, our zoning regulations right now are, as you know, when it comes to solar panels and some of these other things, are 40 years old. Some of those segments, I mean, that the $75,000 for our new zoning regulations, you know, at a minimum is important. Anyway, that's, you know, in order of prioritization. So I would just, I'm for, you know, reducing this to 10, but knowing that we really need to have, you know, our bigger picture, a bigger plan. So, and that could be something, you know, the Climate Change Task Force is a pretty active group. They're very passionate people. And we could bring this to them, like, okay, this is really part of it. So right now, everything's rather fragmented and we need to bring it all together. So.
Agreed.
Okay.
Keith, did you
So Jim,
know something? Go ahead, Keith.
I just had a question. You know, the spreadsheet I'm looking at shows that 10,000 was adopted the current fiscal year, but also 10,000 was adopted fiscal year 1920, which would be a total of 20,000. I don't know if
I had thought so. Unless we cut it at the last minute.
Okay.
The one for Keith, I guess.
Yeah, I don't see that. It might have been under a different name. We'll have to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we did change the name. The name was changed, Jim. Yeah, I do remember that.
So, okay, all right. Well, I can talk with Keith about that afterwards and find out what the other old name was. Okay.
It was the Coastal Adaptation Program.
Oh, coastal adaptation. All right. Let me see if I can find that.
I was looking at that. I guess, Keith, just as an example, using the brick with the living shoreline, you know, would if we say if it was 10,000 and assuming we have 20 in there, 30,000 be enough to even make us eligible for a grant like that? Or, you know, if we could get it up to 25, so that way we have, you know, almost 50,000 in there, make us more competitive for some of these federal matching grants that sometimes come up quickly and we have to react to.
Right. I mean, you know, the more we have, the more competitive we'd be with these grants that come up, just to be able to have matching funds to try to get the bigger pot of money from another governmental organization. You know, I can't remember the details of that specific brick grant and how much we were proposing, but you know, obviously, the more money we have, the more we can reach for.
With that.
Okay, this is Jim again. Yeah, Keith was correct. So there is 10,000 in the Coastal Resiliency Program. What I'm going to do is next Board of Finance meeting, I'm just going to ask them to transfer that previous 10,000 into the Climate Change Adaptation Program. So we're only looking at one account going forward.
Okay. Danielle, are you proposing maybe 25,000 then instead of the 10?
Yeah, like 25 or even 30, so that way we have an even 50 in there. And again, just I know saying you would still have to come before the Board of Finance and the first selectman to expend it. But I think we do have a few projects in the works, like we mentioned, the living shoreline at the boathouse, that are shorter term to leverage it. But I get the point that most of this is longer term, and this might not be the right year. But I guess balancing the rating agency, the signal we want to send to the community, and then our fiscal constraints, I'd ask for maybe 25 or 30, but you and Deb can.
All right, well then, I'm okay with doing 30, because if you have, this is for grant matching for things that will absolutely help the objectives. So yeah, then 30. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with 30 with that rationale added. So we understand, you know, here's how we came up with that number. We're trying to get to 50 so we can go for these matching grants. And they have come up in the past. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you guys. So we'll change that to 30. And again, with the understanding that maybe June as liaison to the Climate Change Task Force, and also us as Board of Selectmen members can work with them a bit more to maybe come up with some specific projects or programs. And like you said, how to make it a bit more cohesive, similar to our new bridge plan, our bridge program. So thank you guys. Okay, so the next one is the Pawcatuck Hurricane Barrier Study. This is related to what we previously talked about with Tom and Barbara and Chris. This, I would suggest we reduce to $1. And if in the future, some of those, I think it's 4 businesses that are in that area want to talk or work with the town to get this study funded, we can. But again, our understanding is the study itself would be an expense. And then what the study does is shows you basically the millions of dollars of work you need to do to get it officially certified. And just seeing where we are financially right now, it does not seem prudent to take forward. So I would suggest that goes down to $1.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, and then so this is also an A. So Jim, how much could you tell us how much is already in this line item?
Hold on a second. $50,000.
Oh, we have 50,000 in it? Okay.
Hold on. Wait, just a second. Give me a minute again. 20, 18, 50,000. No, 84,000. 94,000.
Okay.
We got 94,000.
Okay, it keeps going up. Keep going. But then,
I was looking at 3 years. I was looking at 3 years of appropriations.
Okay, so there's already 94K in that line item?
Yep.
All right. So this might be something we might want to look at. I mean, not part of our budget process, but if that needs to stay there.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Susan and Keith and the EDC, this was a priority project from them from years ago.
Okay.
And we can check in again. I did speak briefly with the chair, Dave Hammond, before this meeting, and he was in agreement to bring it down to $1. So, but it's a good point. We should look at the longer term thoughts. And again, this also links back to climate change. And
yes,
part of that.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, it could be moved to that line, right? We could start funding that line by looking at some of these fractured funding objectives that really are all part of climate change. And we might have a bigger pot to really start that line with, like looking at things like this. So
I totally agree. I mean, I'd love to see why this couldn't be in the climate change. So
yeah.
No, we'll move this to a discussion with Jim and the Board of Finance and the EDC, and maybe also the Climate Change Task Force. But thanks, guys. I think that is a really good suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, so just to confirm, so line 87, Pawcatuck Hurricane Barrier Study will be at $1.
Yeah.
And we'll reevaluate that line in more detail. The inspection vehicle, line 90, Keith, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but this is another one we try and put money away so we're not caught off guard when we need to get one. But Keith, do you want to comment that at all? Or
right. This is sort of a simple putting money aside for the time when we will need a new vehicle. The inspection vehicle for our department is about 14 years old or so. It does have low mileage. So unlike, the police cars, it doesn't get that heavy of use. But with its age, we're just trying to plan for its eventual replacement years from now and just trying to be financially wise to do so.
So I have a question about this then. Is this the first time that you're asking for this in the budget for the inspection vehicle, or was it?
We've asked for it for a few years. It's been reduced to $1 or cut.
So, so what if, so this should be a B because we definitely need an inspection vehicle. So what if we specify electric powered inspection vehicle? You know, like, and have this as a, and start putting the money aside for it. I mean, I'm all for, you know, planning and putting money aside for things. So it needs to be not a C, it needs to be a B, funded with at least $5,000. But that's, Jim said, is the minimum that we need to fund a line item so that next year it can be an A. But, you know, our inspection vehicle, maybe we don't put electric inspection vehicle in the, you know, as a description, but this is one of those things that, you know, when we start to look at vehicle replacement, and, you know, especially ones like this where we can go around and take a look, if we can replace them with electric cars, then that would be, you know, great in the long run. Anyway, that's just my thoughts about that. So I don't think it should be a C. I think it should definitely be a B. If we can fund it with $5,000, the next year it's an A, and then somehow maybe categorize it, or maybe have that part of our overall plan. We don't have to actually have it in the CIP budget. But when we, you know, go to replace vehicles, like we're not ready to do that this year. We don't need to do that this year. But when we are, that we would look at replacing them with electric vehicles, electric powered vehicles. So.
Thank you, June. I think that's excellent. And we did talk last year with DPW about the electric vehicle replacement, and Barbara had done some research into it. And at the time we needed a van, which we didn't even end up getting, but they did make vans. But she did do research, and they do seem like they pay for themselves. The additional cost you pay up front does pay for itself within a 5-year period, was I think the calculation we saw. So I think it would make sense. I don't know if it gives us any more a surety in case we're not here next year doing the SIP for some reason. If we did put electric into the title, if that kind of makes it clear the goal we were shooting for, or Jim, if it doesn't make sense to change the name of the line item.
Well, I would say this. Well, we already got the account set up for inspection vehicle. We'd have to add it. We'd have 2 accounts: inspection vehicle and inspection vehicle electric. And plus, you put in inspection vehicle electric, then you have to buy an electric vehicle. Whereas you put in an inspection vehicle, you can buy electric or conventional at your own discretion down the line, if it makes sense or not.
Or even a hybrid, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I would leave it alone.
Okay.
So we'll change it to a B, and then since instead of reducing it by $1,000 to 5, can we just keep it at the 6,000 in there? Is that?
That's fine.
Is that okay?
June, just as an aside, I'm not sure that folks here are aware. I know that Barbara's already gone off the call, but through our efforts with Sustainable Connecticut, you know, the town does have a policy of, you know, making their vehicles, their fleet replacements more efficient. And depending on what they are, whether they're electric, hybrid, clean diesel, there are a lot of different technologies out there. The type of truck that we have now, the Ford Ranger, they don't, I'm not even sure they make the Ford Ranger anymore, but for that type of truck at this time, I know there are some electrics that are coming out. They may not have quite hit the market yet. But one of the things that I've done in the past is a lot of research about, you know, hybrids versus clean diesels versus electrics. And depending on the situation, you know, they all really have their place in terms of usage, and in terms of, you know, what our needs are here, of where that vehicle needs to go, whether it just needs to go on the road, whether it needs to go off road. So I think we certainly, as a town, are always policy wise, you know, looking forward and trying to make ourselves, you know, more environmentally efficient, more economically efficient. So I absolutely did hear what you said, but I also want to make sure that folks are aware that, you know, if we went to an electric vehicle, we don't have a charging station here. So it would be more than just buying the vehicle, that we would need to actually have the stations as well to charge. So in the past, DEEP has had some money, some grant money out there. The last 2 years, they haven't funded that item, but that's not to say that we couldn't keep monitoring it to see if it came back. And then maybe we would be able to, you know, dovetail those into some of our priorities.
And just also, FYI, the Ford is making the Ranger again now. I don't know if that comes in electric, but they are making the F-150 in electric.
you guys. So we'll kind of take that homework offline. But so for now, we'll change inspection vehicle to a B, keep the title the way it is, knowing we have a policy in place, and keep the 6,000. So the next one is also really interesting. The line 91 file retention. It's in at 125,000. I don't know if Patty or Keith are on or could maybe tell me if you agree that we could hopefully reduce this line item, but essentially just to summarize it, I mean, this is another, I think, very needed area. It would help us basically move a lot of our hard copy files onto digital format. It will be both an efficiency and also we have a significant space constraint issue at Town Hall. To the extent of which I can't even get into enough detail on, but it's significant. So I think by being able to free up much needed space, as well as the efficiency of not having people have to go down 2 flights of stairs and dig through old boxes and identify things, this would be really helpful. They would also help come up with a better classification system. Again, I can't overestimate, I'm sure, how much lost productivity time we have by not having these online. So I know we're hoping to get some of this started this year and then would finish it out next year. It's at 125. I don't know if Patty or Keith, if you have a sense, if we could bring this down to more like 50,000 based on some of the research you've done, or if you feel like 75,000. I do feel like 125 is a bit high. And I'd also like to change it from a C to a B, but I don't know if Keith or Patty. Yeah, go ahead.
I agree. 125 is probably high. We don't have a final number, but I think, either 50 or 75, somewhere in that ballpark, would definitely help with this. Which Barbara was talking earlier about, the difficulties in maintaining an old building like Town Hall. And, the town has sort of committed to Town Hall as will be Town Hall in the future. And yeah, part of that is dealing with all the paper we have. This year is the 60th anniversary of zoning in town, and it's been 60 years of paper piling up with limited space to do it. And we've been looking at this as sort of like a pilot project for the rest of the town too, because other departments are having these same issues. So we think it's a very important request, and it's also a customer service item too, much like permit tracking, where it'll help find things that people are looking for, because people often do want to find the old site plan for their property from 1965, and we've got to help find that.
Danielle, I would probably put it in at 75,000, just then, could get cut further. This is obviously going to be a multi-year project, so we're going to start with planning, but, to Keith's point, 60 years of, planning and other town documents across all departments, this is going to be a multi-year project to really automate and have documents online. And we're currently looking at external resources, or perhaps bringing in a part-time temp, which is probably a more cost-effective way to do this, for them to do some of the scanning. But if you just think about how many documents we have, it's probably a multi-year project. So I would put it in at 75.
On that point, if we started this year and it's maybe even over a 3-year project, then in a future SIP we'd put additional money. So maybe we could keep it at 50 with a higher likelihood of the Board of Finance keeping it in, with the understanding that in the 2022 fiscal year, we'll probably be asking for more to finish up departments.
That's fine.
I would agree with that, Danielle. And I think then also for next year, we'll have a better idea of the actual cost, how much we're going to need.
June?
Yeah, no, I'm all for getting rid of the paper. So, because then we'll have, room for, just projects and people. So that this is, I'm amazed when I go into a doctor's office or dentist's office and they've converted everything to digital, how neat and clean and tidy and how much space there is. So we need to do that as well. And Keith, your point that we've committed to Town Hall continuing to be our Town Hall then this is really this is an essential project. So I have it be a B, and 50,000 is fine.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully this might be a year of taking a deeper look at some of the long-standing deferred maintenance within town hall, both infrastructure and operationally. It could be really amazing to start correcting some of that. So thank you. So the next one is 92, the Circus Lot Acquisition and Master Plan. This is a B. It was $1 last year. I don't believe it. Jim could tell us if there was any other money put in previously. It's at $42,500. I've done just in the last day some additional research on this, and I love this project and this plan. I think it is important that we get it and turn it into a park. It's a lovely location. There's both safety issues in this park as well as underutilization of a beautiful, I think it's almost around 5 acres along the Pawcatuck River. But with that said, the theme of everything that we have going on in terms financially, also town hall resources wide, this is a tricky one. So I'm definitely up for your guys' pushback or challenges on this one, but I would maybe suggest reducing it to 10,000, and I'll tell you how I got at that number. I looked at Connecticut open space land grants, and they usually do about 65% and then expect the rest to come from a local match. Similarly, there's a federal program for forest and open space conservation, and they do about 50%. So I was looking at those, and so if we can buy this back from Westerly at 35,000, using the Connecticut open space example, they'd be paying almost 28,000, and we'd be responsible for a little over 7,000. Then thinking about kind of excavation to make a little trail or clean out some of the forest. Hopefully we could utilize a lot of volunteers and other programs. I know Dave Hammond, the chair of EDC, had looked into, but another 2,000 for that. And so that's how I got to the 10,000. So foreseeably we could actually, buy this back and make it a cleared out, a bit more of a workable area. It could help with development along Liberty Street as well. Keith or Sue could come in here. But I'd say, 10,000, hoping that we can leverage some grant money to acquire this. But again, totally open to pushback. I know we have a lot on our plates this year. So Deb, June, or Keith or Sue.
I mean, I struggle with this one because we really have to prioritize this year. We do have some, that 1 million, June has mentioned it a couple times, with the body cameras, the tennis courts, and I feel like this is one that that it isn't a priority, but it's the kind of thing that could be pushed back because the price, as I understand it, is not going to change. And we do need to do some additional work to understand what price going forward is going to be. And possibly also to see if we can get Westerly to maybe do some of the work even before we buy it, like getting rid of the pump house or abandoning the wells and things like that. So I feel like maybe if we want to make this a priority, maybe next year, spend a little bit of time or thought on the actual costs. Because I'm just concerned that the 42.5 isn't enough to do all the things we're talking about, and we just don't have the money to do it this year. Thanks.
Yeah, I want to add that I know every time we've talked about this, it's the wells that are still there. And that they need to be decommissioned, and I wouldn't want us to get saddled with that cost. But again, I'm all for, like, if we own it, then at least we'll be able to move forward on it. And I don't know how long the grants will last. So if we can get, so maybe keep the money in there for the grant, because I know I worry about grant money. I worry about money getting scarce and grants that are available now just going away. I mean, we could get the lot back, but not do anything with it if we don't know what the costs are going to be, but at least we own it. We own it at a reduced cost. I don't know. I'm a little torn on this one. All for the reasons that Deb mentioned. We don't really know the costs going forward. Westerly still has to do some some work on the site before I think it's okay for us to take it back. But again, go ahead.
Pre-COVID, Dave Hammond and I met with Westerly Town Manager Mark Rooney and Bill Beauregard of Westerly Water, and we did do a walkthrough. So maybe as a next step, we could see if they were up for an outdoor walkthrough, and maybe either individually you guys could go so we don't violate any FOI laws, or we could post it as a meeting for a walkthrough. But they did seem very open and willing to do anything that we needed to prepare the site ahead of time. That not expecting us to just, buy it back and then kind of have to deal with anything. So they did seem really open, but I'm sure, especially Deb, with your LEP experience, you probably have better questions to ask than I did, to the extent of which we don't want to take on any risk. I know the EDC did do that first phase of the testing, and I think that came back looking good. So yeah, I mean, I struggle with this. I guess I see it as an economic driver as well as a needed open space along the river, and a bit of a safety issue considering some of the sad occurrences that happened there this past year, and that we're looking at, this money wouldn't be available until next July, and for that full fiscal year. So I guess I'd still advocate for the 10,000 with the understanding we wouldn't move forward with any grant application or any further movement until maybe you guys had a chance to speak directly with Westerly Water. Maybe even a Board of Finance member could join in that conversation. But I don't know, Keith or Sue, I don't know if you want to come in, because this is you guys obviously have a lot of work on your plate too.
Sure. I really do understand what you're talking about. Keith and I have tried to be really cognizant of the capacity of our staff versus the projects that we're taking on. And we're taking on some pretty big lifts right now. But that also being said, you sort of hate to miss the opportunity. We would hate to miss the opportunity to get a hold of this parcel that's so integral to the fabric of downtown Pawcatuck. We can do so many different things with it, either whether we keep it, split it, sell part of it, develop part of it, then we control what happens there. And because of the linkages there along the river, I can see a lot of opportunities there that maybe wouldn't come up again if we didn't have control of the parcel. So I know that Westerly's talked extensively with Danielle about, how could we acquire it and what ways could we acquire it? And they seem pretty flexible. So it seems like if we're at least headed down that path, even in a small way, that we would be able to sort of, if we could somehow secure our rights to be able to, move forward even in a small way to acquire this. I would hate for us to miss that opportunity.
Just one question was like the grant you talked about, Danielle, that's an open space grant. If we got a grant like that, but then thought about selling or developing part of it, would that negate the grant? I mean, is this a grant that then you have to put a conservation easement on the property?
So for the ones that I looked at, you would have to keep it as fully as a park, but I would wonder if you drew up the property lines of the 35,000, because almost all of this land is wetlands or flooding, so it's not prime for development anyways. But I think where Sue's referring to is there's some parts that abut properties on Liberty Street, but I think even on that, those properties would have a higher resale value or potential development, even if it did abut a park. That was, and again, park being used loosely, probably some trails along the river, mostly forested and wooded, but cleared out, better sight lines. So I think even keeping it fully as open space, there's development potential off the site.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with starting to think about moving forward. Again, and I'd love to do the walkover and take a look at it. I'm just concerned about making sure we understand all the extra costs. I mean, we're talking about lighting in Donahue Park. And if we take this on, then we're going to need to talk about lighting here as well. So it's kind of like, I think we really just need to understand. Now, I agree. I don't want to miss out on a grant. And if we think there's a way we're going to miss out on a grant that would give us some flexibility with the property, but I just think we really need to also really understand the potential liabilities. So.
No, that's a really fair point on the lighting and the sight lines. I'm stuck. Would you be comfortable with, for now, reducing it to 10,000 versus $1 and trying to get these questions answered before the February Board of Finance meeting? Or would you feel more comfortable with putting it in as $1 and kind of reverse engineering?
No, I'm okay with the 10,000 instead of $1 and trying to get questions answered. Because that's what I have, is just a lot of questions.
Yeah, and I'm okay with keeping the $10,000 in there as well to leverage a grant. I mean, anytime we can leverage a grant, that's important. So I'm okay with the 10.
Okay, no, thank you. And it'll give, I think, the EDC some time to probably work through some of these questions, and maybe even we could do a site visit from a safe outdoor distance with masks on. So line 92 will change from 42,500 down to 10,000 with these kind of background homework assignments. And it came to my attention, and I'm really sorry, I skipped lines 85 and 86. So line 85 is the Pawcatuck River Greenway Phase 1. Line 86 is the Pawcatuck River pedestrian bridge. They're both funded at $1. And it's essentially related back to what we've been talking about. These are great long-term projects, particularly say the pedestrian bridge is much longer term. There's a lot more work needed to be done on many sides of this project. So that one makes sense to me to keep as $1 for a longer term look, and likely, just to set the expectation, that's something we could only pursue if we were to get federal or state, but most likely federal, since it links with another state funding for, again, there'd be a local match requirement, so we can look more into that. There are infrastructure grants that come up in the future. We can move quickly, but there's a lot of work to do. The line 85, the Pawcatuck River Greenway Phase 1, this was a priority project last year. I still think it's a wonderful project. It could spur tremendous economic development. It connects this kind of Phase 1, as a reminder, connects the existing bridge with Westerly with Donahue Park. So it's kind of connecting different assets within the town, would hopefully get Donahue Park more, even more utilized, more places to kind of sit and walk along the river. And the EDC as a subcommittee put forward this request. But again, I think in talking with Sue and Keith and understanding their resources for the year and their team and their staff, it might be hard to do. We'd also need to look at possible state or federal grants to help do this, or some private fundraising efforts. So this one's hard. I struggle with this one, but I think for now we had suggested $1, but open to your guys' feedback or thoughts on those two.
No, I agree for both.
Yeah, I do as well.
And for anyone listening, and we'll follow up with the EDC as well, that's not to say this is not feasible for the next year. There could be private fundraising efforts, and always a request to the Board of Finance once private fundraising is underway, or request to look at grants as they come up. But yeah, I think we'll try and focus on a few projects a year and hopefully get some things done. Okay, so moving back down, we are at the last or second to last line. So line 96, contribution to open space acquisition fund. This is a C at 50,000. I would like this to be a B, and the reason I request this is because we have an open space fund. It was primarily set up, Keith can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically contributions from development, where they would kind of give this fee in lieu of compromises that were given. We don't have many of these projects coming online anymore, so it's less likely that we'll have a fund if we're not actively contributing to it. This past year, we've already taken a small amount out. We can't publicly talk about it because it's not a done real estate transaction yet, but to preserve a local farm, working with the state of Connecticut on that one. And then we also have the opportunity before us for the property on Al Harvey Road, which I can say with all certainty, I never would have had the confidence to track that down and work with different state and federal agencies to try and see if this was possible if we didn't have the money existing in a dedicated fund. Just knowing how tight times are, I think going to the town and asking for that money, if it wasn't in a dedicated fund, just would not have been feasible. So long way of saying, I think there's a chance that we'll almost completely deplete that fund this coming year. So to start building it back up, I think is prudent. So I'd love to see this as a B and at 50,000, but again, open to your feedback or pushback or otherwise.
I agree with you. I'm very supportive and I think it should be a B, and I think we do need to start continuing to build this fund.
So, I'm going to ask, could this be something, because I know when Jim puts the budget together, he does show future years. Could this be something that's a B now and an A next year? Because so that we're committed to building this fund up. And if we can show that, then maybe there's leeway on the 50. I mean, I don't want to, this is the fund that's very important, right? So, and once there's public comment about, or public statements about the benefit that this fund will give the residents, having this type of money is really important, especially for the type of, town that we live in. So maybe think of, Danielle, I know you're passionate about it, but maybe think of, maybe dropping this to 40, to 5, but show next year, the 45 or something like that. But this is a fund that we need to, similar to the bridges and everything else, this is a fund we need to really start to build up.
No, and I fully understand and appreciate that this is a tough year. I might ask, so at the B and then future A sounds good. I might ask if you're not comfortable with the 50 for this year, maybe even 25. That way we are putting something in there. Like I said, if it's needed right away for anything that might come up next year for preservation or to start building it, but also understand the tough year element.
Well,
So.
Well, listen, I'm all for leaving it, increasing it to a B, and showing in future years committed funding for this line. You can leave it at a 50. I mean, I don't know its survivability once it goes to the Board of Finance. So I'm just trying to be a little, realistic about this. So.
I think I got booed out of the room last year when I gave them my 2-pager on the benefits of open space. But so maybe trying to show them that we are really trying to whittle this down to what we hope they could accept, maybe to 25,000. Deb,
okay.
what do you think?
I think with pushing to an A and 25, that shows commitment. I could live with that.
Okay.
Well, this is Jim Sullivan. I'd like to interject something about this becoming an A next year, possibly. Just because something, to my mind, just because something is funded year after year doesn't necessarily make it an A. To me, an A is where you have a funding plan established, or you're building funds towards something in the end. My point being, like the police cars, those are an A, not because we need to buy police cars every year, because we've committed to a program of 4 cars a year, an overarching program. Otherwise, it would just be a B, an independent decision year after year, even if whether or not you fund it or not. So unless you say to my mind, for contribution to open space, unless you say we want to in 10 years have $500,000 so we can buy property A, B, or C, that to me would be a program that would make it an A. But just building a fund without a specific goal in mind, I don't know that necessarily classifies as an A. I can talk with Patty Burmo offline and get her opinion on that, but that's just my take.
All right, so Jim, that would also take into account some of our coastal adaptation line items, some of the things that, and I see what you're saying. I think if we have a goal of having this be $500,000 in 10 years or something like that, and to have a mission statement, so to speak, for that particular line item instead of just a rather open-ended one, that makes it a little more real. Okay, right. Okay.
And Jim, I think that's great.
But even more to the point is that this $50,000 isn't going to stay in CIP. It's going to go into the open space fund, and at that point, it's kind of out of the hands of budget decision makers, I guess. it's not actually going to be a SIP project. It's going to leave the SIP and go into our existing open space fund. Yeah, that's just my interpretation. We could talk about it more offline.
Jim, you raised a great point that I think, sorry, one of the call-in users, call-in user 2, I don't know. If anybody not actively talking wants to mute, that helps. So I think we can talk offline, but I think working with Sue, also with the Sustainable CT, there are towns that have, like you guys mentioned, sort of mission statements around open space acquisition kind of goals, and how much they want to be putting away each year with a longer term plan. So we can certainly work on that, and looking at that in more detail. So we'll just, for now, a B and reduce to 25,000. Okay, we have 2 more if we can hang in there, I think. So line 98 is electric vehicle charging stations. That is a C. That was also put in by Rick Newton during the SIP meeting. I might suggest, I was doing a little quick research, and I know Sue mentioned this too, reducing that 50,000 to 2,000. It looks like about, it ranges, but you could likely get 2 charging station locations for 2,000. Again, we could also look if there were any grants available, but if not, we could put 2 in. Help work with the Climate Change Task Force or maybe others to identify the best use location, maybe even partner with the business to help offset some of the costs, maybe stretch this more. But I do think the 50,000 is likely too high for this year.
Okay.
I agree, Danielle. I mean, I think it needs some more research, but I would support the 2,000.
Me too.
Thank you, guys. We'll see if any of these withstand the Board of Finance. Okay, so line 98 will change from 50,000 to 2,000. And then
Danielle,
yeah.
Danielle, before you leave the planning area, I just want to clarify, because you didn't talk about a few items that are just in as a dollar, but line 88, 89, 93, 94, 95, my assumption is those are all as requested. They're all a dollar. You're keeping them as is, correct?
And yes, those are all
Yes.
as is. And I guess the only thing we'll say on the Stillman Mill environmental assessment, we are actively working on that and hopefully have a potential plan in place where we won't need to spend any money in this coming fiscal year to see that plan through. But we'll keep the dollar in there just in case we do need to transfer some money in there. And the others, yeah, those are longstanding projects, but there's no funding for them right now. So those will all stay at $1, unless Deb or June, any input on that?
No.
The electric vehicle charging station, what's your rating for that? What's the Board of Selectmen's priority?
It's right now it's a C. Do you want to keep it a C or move it to a B? I think a C is needed, not urgent. Don't know if we've hit urgent yet. Okay, so we'll keep it a C, Jim.
I would agree.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Stacy. Okay, the very last item is the line 106, Stonington Historical Society Lighthouse Restoration. Last year we funded it at 5,000. As a reminder, this is a lot for the ADA compliance work. They've never asked for anything, if I'm correct, in our SIP. And we have funded projects like this in the past at the YMCA, at the neighborhood center, at the libraries. So they've asked for 50,000. I know it's a tough year, but I'd love to keep this and try and advocate for it. I'm sure the Board of Finance will whittle this down, but I'd love to keep this to show our commitment both to ADA and to this kind of historic treasure.
Hey, Danielle, just to let you know, Chelsea Mitchell from the Historical Society has joined. I was very delinquent in letting her know about this meeting. So she's just joined and was able to hop on. So if there's any questions, and I do apologize again, Chelsea, but she is now on here, so.
No, welcome, Chelsea. Thank you. So Deborah, June, any feedback or questions for Chelsea?
I have no questions. I agree. I think that we have funded other projects similarly, and I would leave it in.
Yeah, I have the same comment. So.
Okay. Kelsey, we'll keep it in at a B with the 50,000, and happy to talk more offline about the Board of Finance meeting, which is probably an important one to go and advocate for and share things ahead of time. But thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
And so
I have a question for Jim about this. Jim, I know there was some conversation about what our long-term commitment was going to be to the lighthouse. Do you have that number? Or was there a
commitment? Any long-term commitment? That's why I had it as a B and not an A. To me, it's an every year decision. We never say, unlike the YMCA where we say we're going to give you $100,000 and we did it over 3 years. That made that an A. I think the contribution is a year by year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was it.
thank you. Okay, so if we won't take this as 100% confirmed, but if I've added up correctly, I think we've, even with the few small additions, I think we have cut about 750,000 out of the CIP, bringing it down to just a little under 4 million. Understandably, this number is probably still too high for taxpayers and the Board of Finance, and we will commit to working very closely with them to try and see what we can do to, but I can't see any, unless I'm missing anything from Deb and June, I can't see anywhere else where we can make any cuts. These just all seem, we're going to put ourselves in longer term compromising position, I think, if we cut anything else, but let me know if you think I'm missing anything. Sorry, I don't know if Mike.
I don't have anything else.
June, I think you're muted. I don't know if you're. Nothing else, then we will make our motions. So I would like to get a motion, bear with me here, to change line 30 from a U to a B, line 36 to $1, line 52 from a D to a C, line 65 to $5,000, to remove line 66, line 79 to a B and 5,000, line 83 to a B with 15,000, line 84 to 30,000, line 87 to $1, line 90 to a B, line 91 to a B and 50,000, line 92 to 10,000, line 96 to B and 25,000, and line 98 to 2,000. Am I missing any? Okay, so if that's good, could I get that motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, so line 30, we also have to change the description of line 30 to bridge replacement and structural improvement fund.
That's
or do we have to?
It is corrected on the latest version. You just don't have the latest version. I apologize for that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Good point. All right.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Nothing else. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is comments from the public.
Okay.
I got something right before the meeting, a letter from a resident supporting the climate fund line item, and I can share that with everyone after. There's a very elegantly written letter about that, which we'll also share with the Board of Finance. I have no comments. This is a long meeting. Thank you guys so much, and we'll try and work closely with the Board of Finance and others to get the best budget we can together. But thank you. This was a heavy lift, so thank you guys.
So I know that Peter and Peter Anderson and Chris Willison are on the line. We're not going over the Board of Education CIP at this time, correct?
Oh, they'll send that over to the Board of Finance when they're ready, but I do thank them for listening, and it helps to give us the big picture of what we're working with on all sides.
Okay.
And it's a pool of money.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah,
So if nothing else, we will adjourn at 12:08.
all right. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.